In his previous life, he was a talented leader who was assassinated by political factions. But unexpectedly, after dying, he was reincarnated as a goblin named Game, but unfortunately, he was the lowest and most inferior species in the goblin tribe. Every day, Game had to stay up late and wake early, working like a beast but still not having enough to eat. If he didn't meet the KPI, he would definitely get beaten up, only losing to the orange team's electric baton, while the high-class nobles still exploited them calmly. Not having to work but still having food on the table is something a modern person who knows the ideals of teacher Huan Zhouxi would understand. He couldn't accept that here he and his sister were often bullied by other goblins because of their weak bodies. Among them, there was a thug who extorted and exploited the two siblings the most, and that was Jack. Sure enough, not long after, Jack used the excuse to bring his underlings to find Game to collect protection money, but this time Game was very calm. Using brainwashing chi technique, he told him that even if he kept doing that, he wouldn't get much and still had to pay protection fees to the higher-ups. So why don't you guys try hunting monsters? Take a risk to gain a lot. Goblins are simple-minded. After hearing that, it seemed reasonable, so Game became the strategist like Zhuge Liang for them. He then laid out a very detailed plan. In the mine, there was a giant blind centipede that relied only on sound to locate. With weak weapons, it was impossible to attack directly because its armor was too thick. His goal was to lure it into the acid pit and try to push it down. Everyone would clean up the mess, digging along the path and throwing bones one by one to attract its attention, but someone needed to lure it into the acid pit. Because it wouldn't go in by itself, Jack was very cunning and planned to use him as bait, but Rosa's sister stood up to protect Game. He was still in pain. Let me do it instead. Of course, Game wouldn't let his sister risk danger. He confidently took the bait role and told Jack, "You help me block the door when I come back." Actually, he knew very well that this bastard would definitely play dirty, crossing the bridge, then pulling it up, squeezing the lemon and discarding the peel. But the thug was still inexperienced and naive, so he was read like an open book by Game. Meanwhile, the monster was showing off its shiny front armor. It seemed like a reputable house. If it got hit once, it would either be sold as salt or crippled for life. Game began instructing the group that if the monster came close, throw bones to lure it away. The guy behind would be responsible for herding it into the pit and rolling the ball. Hearing that, someone felt annoyed and asked, "Why me?" Suddenly, the guy next to him slapped his shoulder. "Who told you to brag about your speed? Prove it then. Don't move until you hear the signal. We will lure it to the acid pit, and Jack will help you trap it there. Understood?" After hearing this, even Jack had to praise him. The idiot's plan actually sounded somewhat reasonable. And so, after a while, the group started working. Saf cautiously hiding behind a rock, observing the monster's movements. Then suddenly, it dashed toward them. Making the young man almost scared out of his wits, he hurriedly fled to a pile of bones. Saf grabbed a bone from there and threw it at the monster. Saf was so scared he squeezed his eyes shut, waiting for his death. But after a while, he realized the centipede, heard the noise, and left without bothering to attack. Meanwhile, the thug Jack was standing guard on the other side. Game raised his hand to signal that the centipede was coming, thinking cunningly that after killing the monster, he would also deal with Game to monopolize the credit. At this moment, Game used a bone to tap the ground. Even the monster was scared and looked toward the deep cave. Then, in less than a few seconds, the monster realized and growled as it ran toward them. However, Z wasn't scared but giggled. Then he swung his arm hard, smashing the bone toward the cave. "You're done for, Game. Once you're in the acid pit, I'll trap both of you. It kills you, then the acid kills it." However, their plan didn't go as expected. The monster stopped, staring at him, making him scared out of his mind. Suddenly, the hero Game appeared, attracting its attention and shouted, "Jack, run! We'll herd it in!" Then Jack used all his strength inherited from birth to run desperately toward there. Wondering why it didn't chase the sound, Game urged him to hurry, and after he and the monster ran inside, Game quickly locked the door. It turned out everything was part of Game's plan. Foolish thug, next time be less obvious with your schemes. At this moment, everyone ran to Z. "What's wrong? Thank the gods, you're still okay." The Game then showed a face as if the house had lost its rice book. "Sorry." He made noise, so it chased after him and fell into a hole. But Jack was unfortunately caught by it, so I had to lock both of them up. "Listen, I don't want any reward, just watch over me. I killed Jack already. I only know how to express my final respect for Jack's sacrifice like this. May the gods witness Jack's bravery." Then they believed it. "You escaped, you're talented. We won't forget this. I'll just take my sister away. May the gods bless you." And after they left, my sister finally asked the Game what really happened. Did Jack really sacrifice himself? Then he ignored it and replied, "Maybe just bad luck." It seems that Centipede not only chased the sound but also the scent. Who knows? After hearing that, she didn't ask further. Right, getting retribution is not surprising. Then they left just like that. But the doubt in her heart couldn't be erased. Scene change. Rosa urged the game. So, eat it. A fat bug was lying on the plate. You really can't swallow this dish? Really, Goza. She still insisted. Come on, it's your favorite dish, and I even saved the head for you. The game pushed the plate away. Goza, no. But Rosa stabbed the bug with a knife, determined to make the game eat it. He reluctantly agreed to get it over with. The game brought the bug close to his mouth, clamped his mouth shut to not make a sound. The game's eyes showed horror. He couldn't eat this disgusting thing. The game looked at her pitifully. Rosa grabbed the knife from his hand. I knew it. After the acid pit incident, I knew it. You're not the game, right? You're a demon. Despite his attempts to explain, Goza put the knife down. I'm not a demon. I can prove it. But Rosa didn't seem to trust him much. Let's see. The game was a bit embarrassed, then suddenly remembered something. Melon powder. She didn't understand what he meant. I have a way to prove the truth with that melon powder. I'll drink the melon powder we got last year mixed with holy water. According to the principle, it can exorcise demons. Right? If I catch fire, then my brother is just a little burnt, nothing else. So you have to believe me, okay? Rosa hesitated a bit, unsure. He didn't hesitate and tried it right away. All right, let's do it. Let me find it first. The game immediately sprinkled the powder into a cup. He wanted to make sure she wouldn't go back on her word. After I drink this, you have to believe I'm not a demon, okay? Rosa still tightly held the knife, saying less and doing more. Although she was panicked inside, the game remained calm on the outside. Hopefully this exorcism of demons is just superstition, or else I'm really done for. His eyes showed a change. She couldn't help but worry. Game, so are you a demon? Turns out the game just disliked the strange taste of the drink. It tastes awful. Rosa angrily punched him in the face. Game, you idiot. The game was extremely happy, calling him Game again. You believe me now, right? She stopped overthinking. It's really the game. You're talking nonsense again. I'm me, the multi-dimensional dreamer. Rosa could only smile wryly. You're me, huh? Choose AI or don't choose. Choose the lazy god, huh? Feel free to chat with her. Which one? I like lazy. But Rosa still doubted life. Now I believe you're my brother, but why have you been acting strange lately? Since you recovered, you've been like a different person. This time he spoke seriously. Can you hear me? The game thought carefully. Game's father also said something like this before. Maybe talking to Goza would be easier to understand. He calmly sat down at the dining table. The game admitted a truth. He had memories from another life. Even he doubted himself. He really wasn't sure what was going on. It felt like drifting in the void. Then his body was swept by a river into a region of light. After touching the light, he woke up with a headache and these foreign memories. Gem recounted what he still remembered. That's all he knew. I swear to you. She jumped on the table. Oh gods, do you know what that means? Gem. Since ancient times, gods and their warriors have been reincarnated into mortal bodies. They possess powers beyond imagination, from superhuman strength, irresistible charm, to reality-altering abilities. After hearing the story, the game was a bit doubtful and pointed to himself. So, do you think I'm one of the chosen? But Rosa wasn't sure, hesitating. That's right. I mean, it's been a long time since someone with special abilities appeared. He propped his chin and listed what he could think of. You mean I can run faster than an arrow? Stronger than a herd of horses jumping over a deep chasm in a single step, things like that. After hearing that, she nodded to indicate those were the abilities. Rosa excitedly asked, So do you have them? Game shook his head firmly and answered no. After hearing the answer, she hesitated a bit and replied, Never mind, maybe you're just a lost soul, when Rosa spoke up to explain. Lost souls are those born with a second memory but without power. Very few of them achieve fame, unless they inherit the memories of great leaders or legendary craftsmen. After understanding what lost soul meant, his voice carried a hint of sadness. So you really are a lost soul. Sorry for disappointing you. Hearing that, her expression darkened and her voice tiredly said, No, thank the gods. We don't need another chosen one. But Rosa was a bit worried and signaled silence to remind Game. But please don't tell AI about this. If the overseers find out you hold the secret about the treasure, what will happen? Rosa asked with a serious face. I'll be tortured, fall dead, or be taken for experiments, right? Hearing those chilling words, she quickly covered her ears with her hands, scared, shouting loudly, Stop! I don't want to hear any more! If you really have any special powers, Game, please never reveal them. Game crossed his arms, looking at Rosa's frightened figure. His voice full of confidence said, Don't worry, I'm not stupid. I even like keeping all 10 fingers and 10 toes. Then she placed a plate holding something on the table, her tone worried. If AI sees you using your powers, I don't know what will happen. Hearing that, Game immediately imagined the scene when some goblin discovered his secret. he would instantly make him disappear. Just thinking about it made him feel a bit uneasy, his face sweating. Game was a bit embarrassed, saying, "Yeah, I don't know either." Then he walked over and stood beside the table, looking at Rosa, softly said, "That's why I don't want to tell you. I don't want to make you more worried." This made her heart feel a bit relieved. In a gentle voice, she replied, "I understand." Then Rosa turned and asked curiously, "So you carry the memories of AI? You behave like a noble but don't seem arrogant at all." Hearing that, he suddenly remembered past events. His eyes flashed with jealousy and sadness, his voice a bit regretful. "No, I'm not a noble. These memories belong to another life. In another society, he was a rebel, someone who tried to make his society better." She wiped her hands with a cloth, then asked, "What happened to him?" He almost slipped but stopped just in time, saying, "Ah, he made a mistake." Recalling the previous memory, he explained he was haunted, killed by nobles opposing what he was trying to do. After hearing this, Rosa grew a bit somber and said, "I understand." Then suddenly she asked about something else. "Hey, if you don't intend to do anything against the green shirts, do you?" Hearing Rosa's question, Game sneered and said, "How dumb do you think I am?" As soon as he finished speaking, she looked at Game with judging eyes. Seeing Rosa's expression, he quickly looked away. Awkwardly replied, "Yeah, that's true," Game explained. "Because SAO, I don't fight the green shirts. But no, I'm not a warrior with weapons or armor, nor do I have an army or mages under my command, so I don't think I'll overthrow AI." It sounded a bit confusing, so she asked again, "What is a mage?" He softly explained, "Those who use magic like mages but with methods, less related to souls, focusing more on magical energy." Hearing Game's explanation, Rosa's face showed surprise, exclaiming, "You speak as if you understand magic well." At that moment, she realized something was off and asked again, "Wait, you don't know magic, right?" He pointed to himself, questioning back, "Groza, do you feel me using magic?" With what she had sensed before, it made Groza a bit confused and stammered, "No, I don't think so." Game pulled out a chair and sat down calmly, saying, "Then don't jump to conclusions. If I knew magic, wouldn't you have felt it already? That's why they keep us here, right, Bogue tribe? Able to sense magic thanks to our lineage, we're useful but also easily replaceable." Hearing that, she reluctantly agreed, "That's right." Suddenly, Rosa called him with a worried voice. Her face darkened, speaking gravely, "Promise me one thing, okay?" At that moment, he still didn't understand why Rosa acted like that, and asked with curiosity, "What is it?" She looked at Game with sincere eyes, lips pressed lightly, her tone pleading, "Please don't change anymore, okay?" Suddenly, he reached out, softly saying, "Come here." Unexpectedly, Game hugged Groza tightly, her face full of surprise. Not understanding what was happening, he held her tightly, gently saying, "I promise, no matter what happens, I will always be your brother." The scene shifts to rose petals, gently drifting in the breeze. Suddenly awakening on the hospital bed, he raised his hand to shield his eyes from the sunlight, looking around in confusion, exclaiming in doubt, "Huh? This is Brutus." Seeing Vaughn awake and preparing to do something, immediately ran over to stop him. Hey, don't move too much. You're injured in the chest. Your condition is still critical." Continuing from the previous episode, Vaughn, now awake, saw the person in front of him and incredulously said the name Brutus, hearing that he still recognized him. Brutus smiled arrogantly, replying, "It's me," and Vaughn still couldn't understand what had happened. Raising his hand to his forehead, questioning himself, was it all just a dream? Sora wondered what he had dreamed about. He laughed loudly, then said, "I wouldn't believe it." Vaughn lay on the bed, half joking, half serious. "A chaotic dream about the other world, and I even became a slave." Bright red roses beside the bed seemed to hide something. He passionately recounted the dream he had experienced. "I wasn't even human. Imagine that." She looked at him with disbelief, saying, "Sounds crazy, right?" Vaughn had anticipated that, so he wasn't too surprised. Calmly, he said, "I know. You two, help me out. I need to get out of bed and go to the council right now." Just as he finished, Vaughn suddenly saw his hands turn into goblin hands, and the image before him blurred. His shocked expression left him speechless for several minutes. His eyes that had just held a bit of joy suddenly became hollow. Vaughn coldly looked at the table, clutching a glass, and said sadly, "Is this really a dream? Right, Brutus?" He was awkward, voice choked, saying, "Sorry, my friend. We can't do anything." His eyes couldn't hide sadness and disappointment as he hesitated. I miss you both so much." Sora's face also showed sadness for not being able to stand by Vaughn. She spoke regretfully. "We miss you too. You will live well in this new life, right? Promise me." Hearing that, he couldn't stay down forever. Vaughn lifted his spirits, smiling confidently. I will. You can trust me. Before completely disappearing, the two left their last words of advice. Finally, with absolute trust, let's change this world for the better. He laughed mockingly, saying, that's the question. More than anyone else, you two should know that I will shake this world to its roots. Suddenly, Brutus pointed to one side and spoke. We will come back to visit you, my friend. Vaughn's gaze stopped on Game. Brutus continued speaking. But now he will accompany you. Game looked at him with a blank expression. He frowned, slightly annoyed. Game, really? Can it be someone less troublesome? Game walked from the foot of the bed to Vaughn's side, looking at him with a hateful gaze. Sensing Vaughn's words, he exclaimed, feeling jealous and hurt, angrily shouting, Hey! I have feelings too, you know. He glanced sideways, asking, So you're still here, right? Jealous shrugged, speaking in a low voice. Of course, this is my body, Vaughn said seriously. Sorry, Jealous, but a team can only have one leader. You need to rest a bit. Then he pointed to himself, protesting. But this is my body, he nodded, smiling softly, and I will take good care of it. But we both know, you can't change your life, but I can. Hearing Vaughn's words, Game's eyes became thoughtful and hesitant. I guess that's true. Suddenly he patted his shoulder lightly, and Vaughn looked at Game with certainty, encouraging, Don't worry, Game. You will be remembered for a long time. Hearing that, he earnestly said, Can you do one thing for me? Please be honest with my sister. I don't want to see her hurt. He replied confidently, I never had a sister, but I will take care of her like my own family. I promise you that. I will make this world better. Suddenly, Vaughn's eyes flashed with a bit of sadness. His voice faltered here, also becoming hesitant because of you and her. Hearing his certainty, Game smiled brightly and responded, Then I will place my trust in you, thank you. Vaughn also quickly responded with a grateful tone, No, Game, thank you. A rose petal fell into the flow of time, once again changing. The dawn appeared after the mountain ranges, starting a new day. Scene transition, Game and Rosa walked to somewhere. Here he saw his kind. She gently pushed his hand teasingly. I can't believe you woke up before me this morning, even cleaned up and made breakfast. Were you a servant in your past life? Hearing that, Game frowned and called Goza firmly. Rosa smiled with a pleased expression and replied, Just joking a little. I won't tease you about those things anymore. Suddenly from behind the two, the voice of an AI loudly called his name. Game. Both startled, turned their heads back. After turning around, they saw Kui approaching and greeting with surprise. Surprised? I thought you were dead. Rosa happily called out to Kui, still smiling in response to Kui's joke. Not yet, and won't be anytime soon if I still have strength. She excitedly ran up to tell him what had happened. Kui, you won't believe what happened yesterday. You know Jack from Group BA, right? He was looking for Game, and he saw how close Rosa was with Kui. Silently recalling Kui's background, he is a supervisor, a friend of Game and Goza's father. He has taken care of them since their parents passed away. 2 years ago, during an attack by the Hippling, strange to see a supervisor close to slaves, but there are good people everywhere. Suddenly, Kui asked Game if it was true he helped defeat the centipede. Game shrugged and replied, Obviously. I just ran faster than them. Hearing the answer, he laughed loudly and said, That's right, Game. I know no AI runs faster than you. Kui began assigning tasks to the two. Hearing that was good. I don't want to waste effort. Just because you're lazy, there's still a lot to do today. Go raw, the mushroom farm needs you, and you, Game. Both stood neatly to receive today's mission, scene transition. A long line of slave spirits of various levels, standing in line. In their hands, AI also held tools to prepare mineral ore from underground. Meanwhile, Kiki was whispering, scheming something evil. He said he had no points, but he had a little sister, and said, Wow, he spoke mockingly. We accept all kinds of payments. Then suddenly Jack's arm grabbed Kiki's neck forcefully. He used strong force to slam his head onto the ground, making Kiki cough up syrup, his eyes full of anger. His hoarse, deep voice hid a terrible threat. I told you no women. He was scared, stammering. I'm sorry, he said. You're with us. You neither buy nor sell to them. Hem stepped forward and reached out to stop Jack. Jack let him go. If he got hurt, the supervisors would ask, hearing that Jack said nothing, looking at him with cold eyes. In his eyes, it was as if saying, Shut your rotten mouth. Seeing Jack's gaze, Hem froze, lips pressed lightly, eyes a bit cautious. Then he removed his hand from Kiki, who knelt on the ground, coughing up strawberry syrup with a painful expression. Jack turned around and threatened, Next time I'll throw you to the Hippling. He sat beside Kiki and gently said, Sorry. The boss is very strict about women. His father died early, and his mother had to do side jobs to support the family. Hearing that, he was a bit curious. She's gone? Hem recalled his past, muttering, Yes, there's a dark spot. It can be healed but needs points. The boss tried to gather points to treat her, but all old clients avoided him. He looked at the green goblins and said, "No green name dared admit they had fun with the gray one." Hem saw Jack's face filled with resentment. Then he spoke up to remind the boss, still bitter about that. "Remember that?" He went back to him and hesitated to advise the boss. "You must stop. Otherwise, if you can't control yourself, we'll lose more people to them." VG turned back to ask about Kiki. "Did you tell him the rules earlier?" Hem immediately confirmed firmly. "Yes, I told all of them they can steal and run as much as they want, but must not touch women." At this time, he also explained why there are some like him. They know, but they are men, right? There's not enough blood to feed two heads at once. He didn't want to listen to what Hem just said. Jack still held his opinion firmly and said, "I don't need that filthy type in my gang." To Vogo, he quickly spoke up for Kiki. "Boss, don't be like that. Forget it. Without people, there wouldn't be a gang, and we've already fallen behind VG at this point." He saw Vet's eyes filled with a bit of contempt and said, "Look, that's your favorite bug. He's turning back." At this moment, it seemed like you were having trouble with some others. Hen saw Vet stand up to protect the weak and was a bit surprised, saying, "Where did this bug find such guts?" You wondered a bit? I never understood why. You hated that kid so much. Vet said nothing, but there was something unspeakable in his eyes. Seeing you stand up to protect others like that made Jack feel a bit awkward. He recalled Vet's childhood appearance, when he was bullied by others. The fearful look and sobbing of you back then. When Vet was about to be beaten by the bullies, you just closed your eyes tightly, holding the food in your hands, ready to be beaten up by them. But Vet waited a long time and nothing happened. He gathered all his courage and slightly opened one eye to look. Then on Vet's face there was surprise. Vak, when he was little, had dealt with the gang of small fry bullies in an instant. He reached out his hand to help you stand up, and helped Vet escape from the bullies. But after that incident, something happened that made Jack realize the saying that doing good often brings misfortune. He learned that lesson the day he helped Vet. Continuing from before, Jack recounted the past when he and Vet were still close brothers. Vet was nothing like me, but we were still brothers. Over the years, we grew up together. Jack had what I had. But until one day, everything came to an end. A gray goblin army appeared, according to his story, during the annual expedition, descending to the deep levels to eliminate the spirit violators and other strange beasts. Vet and I went ahead with Virgil and his soldiers. The goblins thought we would die for them, but we trained our people to keep them alive. They faced spider monsters. Everyone united to create a glorious victory and went inside. He and Vet saw a dazzling light like a forest inside the cave, trees growing everywhere. The gray goblin army slowly advanced inside. While we set up camp, they divided into scouting teams. My group was sent to the farthest end near a lake, while VG went to the other side of the cave. Despite your worry, Jack's face showed excitement at being on the front line, knowing he had to go to the most dangerous place. Vet asked to go with Gon. He wanted Vet to be safest, so he sent him with another group. I wanted her to be safe, so I agreed immediately. As expected by Jack and me, a pack of spirit violators ambushed us. We had to break through and run. After that attack, many were injured, and sensitivity as well as alertness around became more tense. Scene change. At this moment, he seemed to see something terrible, making his expression panic mixed with astonishment. Gon's group was slaughtered. Vet completely disappeared. One of them noticed something behind the bushes. When going to check, Jack saw a small footprint immediately. He led his group rushing like an arrow towards the footprints left on the mud. I didn't care who took her. I just wanted my little brother back. When arriving, Jack saw a gray lin corner with a figure exactly like Vet. He was shocked. Unable to believe his eyes, Jack slowly approached to check, but before he could see Vet's wounds, Jack, with his keen senses, detected something rushing towards him. With a swift move, he easily caught the spear tip. Jack's eyes became furious, teeth clenched tightly. He used his strength to break the spear. Meanwhile, VG approached and hid his hands to surround. We were overwhelmed, 2 against 1, but our soldiers knew how to fight while theirs did not. Vak, with just one axe, was enough to shatter those small fry like the spear just now. His eyes suddenly changed direction. At this moment, he and his troops rushed in fiercely, his face showing anger and rage, eyes wide open, looking at them without any fear. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain from his side. Vak collapsed, along with a wound bleeding red syrup. His eyes full of shock, Vak slowly looked up. He could hardly believe it. The one who stabbed him from behind was Vet himself. I was really stupid and blind. The goblin army formed a protective formation inside. Suddenly, one jumped high, holding a spear. It threw fiercely, hitting an enemy. After throwing it, landed firmly on the ground. Looking back as if seeing something, He immediately panicked and hurriedly called his teammates, pointing in that direction, knelt before VG with a trembling hand, loudly threatening to stop. If you want him to live, then stop. The subordinates under Jack immediately hesitated. Jack was restrained. He stubbornly asked why. Vet disdainfully replied, "Sorry, Jack. Being friends with you never helps." "I have the life I want," VG made a better offer. Vok, injured, stammered, saying he is our brother. Vet's eyes were dangerous. He was furious, almost shouting, "Brother? Do you really think so? In your memory?" Vak sat on the chair, letting the girls surround him, with servants attending. Vet sat hidden among the crowd. He resented thinking everything with you was easy. Women, friends, power, but I could only live in your shadow. But then I realized I had something precious, something everyone desires but few have, your trust. And I used it to get what I really wanted. Vet negotiated with VG, who pointed a weapon at him, returning to reality. Vet mockingly sneered. "Don't worry. I will tell your sister that you died saving the whole group from the goblins," he whispered close to his ear. "She will be very grateful. You know. And she has a beautiful body." In a moment, the image turned black and white. Jack's silhouette appeared clearly with an axe. He laughed madly, sensing something unusual from Jack. Vet suspiciously stepped back. VG said, behind all the malice, "Only fools boast before their opponent dies. Stop this nonsense and finish him off." Vet awkwardly rubbed his hands. "I thought you would prefer to deliver the killing blow yourself, sir." VG ignored his words and continued preaching. "A warrior dying by the hand of a traitor sounds like a poem or a tragic verse. Don't you think so?" Vet hesitated but affirmed, "Of course, sir." Then he raised the knife. "Goodbye, Jack. Don't worry. I will be a good friend and cherish what you left behind." Jack suddenly grabbed the handle of the stick, swung it, revealing a sharp axe blade. With one strike, cut off both of Vet's hands. His eyes looked at him with cruelty, voice full of anger. "I will deal with you later." Vok rushed toward two nearby goblins, making them panic and scream loudly, "Boss, what should we do? Boss?" Jack's men radiated killing intent. He frantically slaughtered, "He has handed you over to me." The enemy elders showed horror and fled. His subordinates were scattered like dust by Jack's men. Then Jack carried Vet to a place, making him repeatedly plead, "Jack, please spare me. I was forced. If I refuse, they will kill everyone I care about." Hearing this, Jack coldly replied, "Then you should have killed yourself." Vet let him sit on the ground, then said goodbye. "Vet, do better in the next life." Vet confused. "What do you mean?" Just after finishing, Vet heard the cry of some creature that scared him. Mutated creatures appeared in droves. Vet turned his back and left, leaving behind Vet's cries for help. "Vet, help me. I'm sorry. I beg you," Vet coldly thought. "Mercy is a lesson Vet taught me. I will never make that mistake again." Scene changes to the game room. Jack returns, frustrated, asking Jack, "Boss, should we intervene? We can't let those Jack scoundrels and VG cause chaos in our territory." Hearing this, very annoyed, he said without hesitation, "Let it be. Some people must learn to stand up the hard way." Everyone turned their backs, leaving the game, and two fever Gs standing aside discussing the current situation. "You can't turn a rat into a swarm of bees." Vun Vun sighed and asked him, "Is he a child? They think a few pretty words will change the world. Should we help him?" Vok turned away coldly. "Let him be. Let him grow up a bit or die. Whichever comes first." Boss Vun thought carefully, then agreed with Rock to let those guys torment him first. Then we appear as heroes to save the world. Good idea, boss. The henchman of Verge held a sharp whetstone in his hand. He said excitedly, "Now is your chance to beg, you weakling. If you do that, we will finish quickly, maybe." Gen's gray face growled. "Weak, so what?" Hearing this, the guy startled and stepped back. Gen continued fiercely, "That means we have to kneel in the mud and let you step on us?" Everyone listening was stunned. "Hearing you abuse our loved ones and turn our lives into a nightmare." He raised his hand powerfully towards everyone, refusing to live like this when he almost died and his life flashed before his eyes. "Do you know what I saw?" The fat guy hiding behind the skinny one asked curiously. "What did you see?" Gen firmly replied. "Nothing at all. I saw nothing." He calmly recounted, "I saw a life not worth more than a spit on the ground. A life full of labor every day just to get zero in return. Living like a slave is not living, that is hell. And that hell lasts until we die. And I realized one thing, since I am already in hell, why don't I fight? What do I have to lose?" Game turned to the crowd and asked, "What do we have to lose?" He did not hesitate and encouraged them with spirit. "Are we weak? Yes. Are we ever cowardly? Yes, sometimes. But if we fight together, we can achieve the impossible. So brothers and sisters, I ask you to lend me your strength, and I will lend you mine. I will be your sword and shield, and together we will reclaim our dignity." The crowd was persuaded by his words. The crowd cheered for him. Suddenly, someone shouted a warning. "Game, be careful!" He quickly dodged the skinny tall guy's sneak attack. The man seemed to realize something as a small cut appeared on Game's arm. The skinny tall guy wildly swung his hand. But all were blocked by Game. Unexpectedly, Game counterattacked and defeated that guy with one strike, ending the matter. Calmly, Game said, "One down, where's the other?" His eyes looked at everyone. The fat guy had been beaten badly by them. Seeing that, Game excitedly shouted, "See? Our brothers and sisters, VG is nothing. He and his men are just a few, but we are countless. Follow me, and I swear on my life that he will never threaten us again." Applause suddenly rang out, making Game look towards the trash. He looked at Game and seriously said, "Game, we need to talk." A figure hurriedly ran over. Small hands lifted the curtain that once shielded Game. She stepped inside and pulled the curtain back. Goza anxiously asked loudly, "What did you do?" Game suspiciously asked back, "What did I do?" Goza lost her temper and said, "Don't pretend to be clueless. Everyone is talking. Why did you foolishly kill VG's men?" Gen calmly bandaged the wound on his arm and replied, "That was necessary." Goza was confused. Why? Why was it necessary to kill them? He casually answered, "To make friends." Hearing Game's answer, she was embarrassed and continued to ask, "To make friends? Who kills people to make friends?" He pointed to a nearby chair and told Goza to sit down. She was furious at her brother's indifference, her gaze sharp. Seeing that, Game sighed helplessly. "Up to you." In his mind appeared a diagram as he explained to Goza, "We need allies to survive. And in this area of the mine, there are only two ruling forces, Jack and Virgil. Jack is strong, but Virgil has the backing of supervisors and his henchmen, so his position is more stable. Actually, if a monster wants influence, Virgil's faction is clearly the place to join. But because VG has too many henchmen, internal competition is too fierce. At best, I can only be a disposable soldier for him." Gen remembered Jack's confident figure, but Jack was different. Jack's position was weaker, and he knew Jack would accept him as an ally, as long as he brought some value. So he gave him a performance he needed to see, and when he had something to offer, he would come to him. Of course, not everything went according to plan. The memory of deciding the fat guy's fate became vivid. The fat guy was forced to kneel, painfully begging, "Please, by SH's mercy, please let me go." Gen coldly raised a sharp object to execute him, but suddenly Gen stood up to stop that action. Vac witnessed the scene and frowned. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Game turned back seriously and said, "I think we should let him go." Vac anxiously reminded, "Is this a joke? If we spare him, tomorrow he will come back, and then your head or your sister's will be lost." Game shook his head, denying that. He began to present his opinion. "Listen, whether we kill him or not, I have offended VG enough for him to hunt me down to the end. But showing mercy to a victim of this painful life cannot be a crime. There will be times we fall into the abyss and have to do everything to become stronger. Some of us, even doing terrible things out of desperation." Game turned to look at the confident fat guy and said, "I believe that any monster deserves at least one chance to redeem themselves, because even when we sink into darkness, we can still swim back to the surface on our own." He patted the fat guy on the shoulder and asked, "Can you still swim?" The fat guy hesitated and groaned. He tilted his head to look at his comrades, afraid that what happened to his friend would happen to him as well. Fear turned into determination as he firmly said loudly, "I can swim, I can swim." Game continued to persuade Jack. "I know this isn't easy for you, but we have to prove that we are different from VG, and what message is stronger than a message sent to VG?" The words Game said to Jack made him frown and ponder. With Jack's suspicious look, Game showed that he was not weak at all. Hem witnessed the process and was interested, laughing and talking with Game. "You're playing a dangerous game, kid. I like that." This made Game hesitate before replying, "Thanks." Realizing he didn't know his name, Hem cheerfully said, "Hem, man. But you can call me Hem. That's how the brave call me. And you're very brave." Hearing that, Game quickly said thanks to Hem, and then turned back to persuade Jack. "Please, Jack, can you let him go?" Hem trusted Game and said, "Let me help you. I think we should listen to this kid. Boss, he's gutsy." After a moment of silence, he sighed helplessly. Raising his hand high, he declared, "This is the end of your funeral." The fat guy also looked around wildly, then stood up and ran to the cave entrance. He stopped and the fat guy turned to Game and said, "Thanks, buddy." After saying that, he turned and left. Game proudly boasted to Jack, "See, there's still hope." Jack felt annoyed, looked away, muttering, "You're crazy." Some people behind started whispering, "Can't believe he let him go." "Look, I told you." Game ignored them and winked at Jack. "Or maybe this place has lived too long relying on fear." He sighed helplessly and frowned. "You might be able to." Suddenly a voice rang out, "Have you two finished your little act?" thought appeared with seriousness, surprising and alarming everyone. Someone loudly announced he was the supervisor. Vac saw him like a cat sees a mouse, nervously stammering. "Supervisor?" Game was beside him and happily called out his name, Toast. He happily stepped forward to shake Toast's hand. They talked together and Toast spoke first. "Hello, Game, what's up?" Game replied. "She's fine. I'll tell her you asked about us. That's all." Then Thos turned to everyone and shouted angrily, "All right, lazy bunch, no more games. Get back to work. If you fall behind schedule again, you'll taste ROI." Seeing that, Vac whispered to Game. "He's not angry?" Game glanced at him calmly and said, "He's a friend of my family, but he will be angry if we stand here any longer. Do you have somewhere to talk?" Ending the flashback, Game continued telling Goza. Finally, Jack realized the times were changing and decided to side with me instead of against me. He proposed to protect me from VG and support me in establishing my own faction. Goza was curious and asked what he got in return. Game appeared indifferent and answered, "I agreed to become his vassal and manage the buffer zone between his territory and VG's." Hearing that, Goza helplessly asked, "So you're the new gang leader? Isn't that what you wanted?" Game didn't deny it. Even as an AI, Jen calmly affirmed, "Your guess is right. I can't protect the people I love without power, and I'm not strong enough to do it alone. I need others to support me." Finishing, he pointed at Goza and added, "Including you, Goza." Hearing that, she suspiciously asked question by question, "Is he still a part of you, your brother?" Jen quickly changed his expression and answered, "He is, and he loves you very much, in a troublesome way." Goza's sharp and serious eyes looked straight at him. "What's your name? Your real name?" Jen was embarrassed and stepped back, saying, "Do we still have to do this? If I say my real name and that I'm a demon, I'll have to run away to avoid revealing it. Otherwise, I'll be tied to you like a servant." Goza continued, "So what is it? Say it before I go find a nun." Seeing her sharpness, Jen reluctantly agreed. "His name is Leonard Aaron Vanderstein, but people call him Lep." Knowing this, Go-Ra seriously ordered him, "You can hit yourself." Gen looked at his trembling fist. Then he joked, "No, that won't happen." Go-Ra smiled brightly and said, "That's enough for me." Elsewhere, the fat guy hurriedly ran forward, remembering Tay, who saved him, and said, "You can swim, right, buddy?" The fat guy recalled his past. He had a wife and 2 children until one day his family was cornered. Gelma's big henchman looked at his wife with lustful eyes. The fat guy and his wife were terrified. Finally, the fat guy bravely spoke up to protect his small family, a hand resting on his shoulder. The henchman with a bowl cut was interested in the fat guy, who was dragged away by their group, leaving his wife and children behind. He was forced to kneel before someone. Gelma coldly looked at him with contempt, then sighed and waved his hand, seemingly agreeing to recruit the fat guy. Next came the times of looting and drinking. Finally, he abandoned his wife and children to fool around, making them sad. Scene change. The group of 3 were drinking together. Then it was time for Go-Ra to deal with the big guy in the group of 3. The scene repeated itself. "Can you swim, buddy?" The fat guy held his head against the wall, regretting, "What have I done with my life?" He thought of his wife and 2 children. "Haga, can you fix this?" "You'll see. We'll leave here and start a new life. I promise." He lifted his spirits, running forward, shouting, "I will swim!" Inside the cave near the busy market, some people sold their loot, others socialized. Go-Ra hurriedly shouted, "I'm not done yet," but Game ignored his sister. He glanced around with interest and said, "Are you planning to stay here all morning?" "I'm just shortening the process." "You need to save money," he said. She got angry because someone kept hoarding all their rewards. Game anxiously explained, "I'm saving money to buy a wooden door for our cave." Go-Ra said disappointedly, "One guy, and I've told you so many times, we don't need a door. We live next to the guard post. AI will bother us, right? Besides, you take tribute, don't you? I don't skim from the workers like others." Go-Ra looked serious and started explaining to his sister, "It's not like that. Jack didn't give me this area because it's a gold mine. He gave it to me because he barely got anything from it. If anything, I saved money for him by taking it from his hands." Go-Ra looked at Gen suspiciously. "Then why do you accept it if it's such a bad deal?" His confidence rose. "From humble beginnings, great things will arise. Wait and see." Before he finished, a loud call came from afar. "Lord Gen! Lord Gen!" Game pointed to the newcomer, still out of breath, and introduced, "Go-Ra, this is my new subordinate, Gon." "What's the matter, Gon?" He looked serious and reported, "Lord Game, Jack just sent a message that they announced a new expedition to the lower levels, and Vaughn tried to finish the last sentence, in 2 weeks." This made Game and Goza thoughtful. At the secret base, Vaughn was commanding his warriors to train. He stood aside shouting, "Attack!" Immediately, all the spears pointed in one direction. Perhaps their movements were not yet perfect. Vaughn commanded again. The group simultaneously repeated the motion of raising their spears pointing in one direction. The momentum still wasn't clear. Vaughn shouted again. The skinny group repeated the motion, once more, like programmed robots. This time it seemed better. Vaughn stopped and shouted, "Attention! Spears up!" He respectfully turned to Game and said, "They are ready for your inspection." Behind them, the soldiers stood at attention, one hand holding a spear, the other raised in a military salute. Gen looked at them briefly and said, "Thank you, son. Go see what they're doing." Gen's golden eyes shifted in one direction, filled with deep, inscrutable meaning. Following his gaze, two soldiers in the fifth row were not serious. They were discussing a seemingly very interesting topic, laughing and chatting without care. Not allowing this to continue here, Game rushed over like a bullet and kicked the spear leg of the soldier closest to him. The soldier was suddenly kicked, losing support, immediately losing balance and staggering. Gen sternly reminded the remaining soldier, who then stood at attention. Head bowed in apology, the other one couldn't stand due to sudden loss of balance from physical impact. So right now he's face planted on the damp basement floor. This is a weapon, not a toy. When you stand at attention, eyes straight ahead, mouth tightly closed, understood? Then he turned to instruct their punishment with Vaughn, each to do 40 push-ups, assigning one person to supervise, and told the remaining rookies to start combat training. Vaughn was startled but responded reflexively without thinking. "Yes, sir." The soldiers were divided into two teams facing each other, ready to practice. Game sat on one side. The soldiers charged into battle, finally achieving a relatively positive result. He concluded that he had tried to teach simple combat tactics, and it seemed they understood the concept. That good moment only lasted briefly. Finally, Game couldn't hold back and voiced his feelings. But in the end, they were just minors. No surprise that his soldiers were easily defeated by goblins, despite being taught basic tactics. But they couldn't compare to the goblins. When facing them, they could only choose the 36th plan to preserve numbers. Run to avoid attack. Gen sat down, elbows on knees, hands supporting chin, sighed, and continued speaking. The expedition's guide was injured, and thanks to that we gained some time, but still not enough. Vaughn's face darkened, silent without replying, somewhat understanding his mood, sighed for a moment before breaking the silence. He hesitated like a new bride, asking, "Game, sir, I have never fought before, but I have witnessed some soldiers fighting them. Well, and would it be better if we had ranged weapons?" Game observed the rookie's training without turning to answer him. "All right, but suitable wood for bows is very hard to find. The upper class is stingy and the damn goblins monopolize that wood." Vaughn panicked loudly without restraint, calmly and evenly as if they were just talking. "Today, the sun is very nice. Not discussing military strategy." He glanced around, then whispered, "Sir, please don't speak so loudly." Gen understood Vaughn's feelings, but he was in a state of helplessness. No interest to do anything or to try to keep a secret about something that perhaps even AI would hear. It's okay because he himself hasn't found a solution to this problem yet. He rested his chin again and sighed heavily. Game replied, "I'm not an idiot. Vaughn is just feeling desperate. I really don't know what I would trade to get an assault rifle." Vaughn suggested, "Why not use slingshots and spears?" Gen sat upright now, no longer resting his chin and sighing. He crossed his arms and shared his idea with him. "Most types of stones are too weak to penetrate the outer shell of the two, and the boga can't carry too many spears. But I think if we get creative a bit, we could put them into the gaps of the slingshots. Right, Vaughn?" For a moment, Vaughn couldn't fully understand Game's idea and asked again, "Put into the gaps? What can we do with that?" Game answered, "You'll be surprised." He explained his idea. "You can fill them with all kinds of surprises. For example, paralyzing poison, sleeping powder. You can freely choose. You could even fill them with oil and set enemies on fire. Everything would be perfect if it worked." But harsh reality slapped him, made him realize the current situation. Game returned to his gloomy, desperate state as before, sighed wearily. "What a pity. All that costs money, and I've spent everything we had on wooden armor and iron helmets. Wood for the warriors," and Vaughn responded excitedly. "The warriors really like that, sir." Game replied, "I understand." Game rested his chin, wishing we had metal bullets for the slingshot. "That would be much more effective." Vaughn asked, "What about lead bullets?" Game answered, "Definitely possible. A good lead bullet can pierce an iron helmet, but although we can buy lead ore, we have no AI to cast it." Vaughn opened a very promising development path, "Sir. I think I know someone who can do it." Gen's eyes widened in surprise, looking at Vaughn. He sat up straight and asked, "You can do it?" He explained, "He is an exile whom my father saved a long time ago. I will ask him to help us. But he won't work for free." Stop for a moment. Vaughn continued speaking. "The only thing, I'm sure it won't cost much. There's a promising direction ahead." The Game feels empowered and stands up suddenly. Hands on hips excitedly said, "All right then, let's go meet him immediately." And Vaughn scratched his head awkwardly said, "Yes, sir, about that. He doesn't want AI to know him except for my family and a few others. If I take you to meet him, I'll get into big trouble." The excitement Vaughn had earlier immediately deflated because of Vaughn's words. Half sat down. The situation is like this again. I guess he's too proud. To let others see how much he has declined, Vaughn apologized. "I am sorry about this, sir. The game had no intention to punish him. He comforted instead. It's okay, Vaughn. Go, negotiate a deal with him. This bullet will be a big turning point." "Yes," Vaughn saluted and stood at attention. "Yes, sir," said then he left immediately. At the same time, the two soldiers from before also carried out, finished the punishment. They dragged themselves over, although tired from the ear pain, still tried to say, "We have completed the push-up punishment already." "Sir, Game." "Yes." Game turned to the two soldiers. "Well done. I have a mission for you two. Do you know where the acid pits are in the forbidden caves?" Although they didn't understand anything, but the two soldiers honestly answered yes in a weak, sluggish tone. Hearing that, Game encouraged. "Come on, guys. Go get a few more people and bring some ropes. We are about to have a little trip." Gen stood in front of a monster with a wide mouth and sharp teeth like spikes. The two soldiers with Vaughn saw it and were terrified. Faces pale, scared, stepped back a few steps. One of them couldn't help but ask, What is this?" They were still scared as before, the fear increasingly obvious. No sign of easing. Seeing that, Game said to reassure them, "It's already dead, don't worry." The soldier in charge dragged the monster out and asked where we should put it. Game pointed and said, "Put it there," leaning against the wall. Vaughn curiously asked, "Sir, what is this?" Game replied, "An old friend that we are about to utilize." "Do you have the samples I requested yet?" Without waiting for him to answer, Game held in hand the product of the person who will cast lead bullets for me. After examining for a while, Game gave feedback, NDT0. The weight and shape of them are quite good. And Vaughn added, "He is very proud of his work, sir." Game seemed to know. He replied, "I can see that through these patterns." Game gave a request to Vaughn, "Give me a slingshot and we will test it," holding the slingshot in hand. Game released the bullet with exquisite patterns into the rubber part in the middle. Game pulled the string with strong force. The string spun in circles in the air like a ceiling fan. His target was the dead monster over there. The momentum was enough. Game put force into his wrist and shot. The bullet tore through the wind at an incredible speed, finally flew straight into the monster's philtrum and stayed there. Vaughn asked, "Sir, how was it?" Game stared at the bullet just shot and said, "I think we need a few more tests." Then Game ordered Vaughn to distribute the remaining samples to those people. Inform them AI's deepest shot got 10 points. Hearing that, Vaughn pointed at himself, stammering, and finally managed to say a word. "Can I try too, sir? I used to be the best slingshot shooter in this area when I was young." Game did not object. "All right, let them see how it's done." Gen once again acted as an observer. He said, a concluding sentence, "In a bright future, even a boga child can use leaves to hunt food. This will be a turning point." Yes. Vaughn seemed energized like drinking chicken blood, full of spirit to try. But maybe the final result is not very promising. Game encouraged him. "Better luck next time, Vaughn. Practice harder." Vaughn quietly replied, "Yes, sir." Even his voice gave a feeling full of hope. Not letting him lose energy too long, Game called him Vaughn. He looked up at Game and said nothing. The meaning was very clear for him to command and just listen and follow. Game instructed him, "Inform him we need a lot of bullets, the more the better, but skip the decorative patterns." "We don't have time for that." And Vaughn finally brightened up again. He happily replied, "Yes, sir." Immediately after, he rushed off. Seeing Vaughn happy, then going, Rosa, standing beside Game, couldn't help but exclaim, "It seems that AI had a fun day, then suddenly changed the story direction to something completely unrelated. It would be better if you bought me a wooden door for our house." Rosa raised her hand to object, her attitude shifting from normal to frowning and annoyed. "How many times have I told you about this?" "We can't buy a new door," Rosa said, covering her face in frustration. "You know what happened to me today, right? The supervisor told me to take it easy because I was overworking to earn points." Game scratched his head and asked again. Then Rosa grabbed his collar and shouted, "It's terrible! The game is really bad! The person responsible works themselves to death. I told you to take care of your health and ease the burden a bit." Rosa let go of his collar, turned around, and faced away from him. Jealousy soothed. "Look, Gosra, I know you have to bear everything alone, and it's very hard, but it's all for our future." Finally, to end the topic, Rosa turned back and replied, "Whatever." "Once home," Game interrupted, "let me cook, okay? You just rest. At least I can." Before he finished, both were confused by a strange scent spreading around. Rosa reacted faster, asking, "What is that smell?" Then, seeing something, she panicked and screamed. At that moment, Game finally saw clearly what was in front of him. Rosa turned her face away, unable to look directly, and screamed uncontrollably. Rosa sat down and vomited everything in her stomach. Game patted her back and said, "Maybe after all, we'll get that door." VG in a flashback as a child, confused by the sounds made by those people. He was attracted by the delicious food displayed in front of him. A boy was devouring food greedily. Seeing VG drooling, he sneered and said, "That hungry kid." Another boy sitting nearby quickly added, "What has he done to deserve to eat? Let him find his own food," said the stepfather, then stepped forward, grabbed VG by the collar, and threw him away. Aggressively, "Get out and find leftover food, kid. Earn your place yourself," VG thought silently. "When I was young, I thought life was nothing but suffering. My stepfather was the gang leader in the area where I lived. When he looked at me, he only saw my mother's past, his own failures, and those who hated him. My father vented all their anger on me, leaving me alone. At that time, VG was just a child. I wandered the streets to find food like that. After a while, when I was old enough, my parents sold me to the arena to pay off gambling debts. Every night was the same. VG had to ignore everything and fight other youths to survive. He lived with blood and gore day after day until a child trembled, knelt down, and begged him, 'Please have mercy, please.' Virgin stood still, panting heavily. He frowned, thinking, 'I have no mercy to give. Sparing his life means my death.' Compassion in Virgin gradually faded. In the end, he mercilessly lowered his sword and killed that child. He was silent, lost in thought. Where I lived, rat fights were normal. The children in this area often entertained themselves by making starving rats fight to the death for scraps of food. Just like me, the weak were forced to fight for the amusement of the strong. But one night, I saw something. A comrade was using a small stick to poke a rat that was no longer moving. He shouted aggressively, 'Get up and fight!' Suddenly, another rat bit the boy's hand in retaliation. The boy panicked, shouted, 'Get away from me!' then quickly regained the upper hand. He knocked the rat down and stomped it to death. VG watched everything from afar, eyes wide open. He pressed his lips, thinking, seeing that monster fight back, I suddenly realized that if even an animal cannot accept a life of slavery, then how can I? It knew it couldn't win, but still fought. It died like a rat, not a slave. Virgin tightened his hands, thinking inside, if even a rat can be so brave and determined, then why can't I? VG's eyes gradually lit with a flame of determination. He kept reminding himself that day he had shaken off the chains binding him and lived by only one rule, his own law. Then one day, he used poison on his parents swiftly, unseen by anyone. VG blinked at his parents and silently thought, if my parents had been more perceptive, they could have avoided this outcome, and Google doesn't even regret his actions. He coldly thought to himself that I had prepared everything very carefully. They would never be able to wake up again. They taught me the rules of living in this world, so I took back everything they had. VG raised the blood-stained axe, his face full of indifference to the world as he silently thought to himself. The strength, life force, and even their skin. He stood on the high platform looking down at the kids below, raising his eyebrows and shouting loudly, "Tonight, you have witnessed the death of this old pig. Now tell me, who do you want to obey?" A voice rang out. Cutting through VG's stream of thoughts and memories, VG put down the flute in his hand, fell silent, and looked at the one who had shouted his name. Threatening that guy, a frightened fan hurriedly spoke up to clarify. "Sorry, boss, but..." VG sighed deeply and urged, "Speak, OS1. Boss OS1 quickly reported the situation. "Boss, that's right, Gelma is a traitor." Hearing this, VG just lightly turned his face and nodded, replying, "I understand." He stepped over to the nearby clay statues, picked one up, and looked at it carefully. After a while, he muttered softly, "What a pity." He recalled when I took my father's place, I was surrounded by a circle of old men. To survive, I needed teammates around me. People who shared the same ambition as me and Virgil. He remembered wholeheartedly choosing Gelma as his man among thousands. He pursed his lips, thinking silently. Gelma was the first among the 10,000 people I chose to be my henchmen. The abandoned bastards of the nobility like me, those who shared the same aspiration for the future. Then he and his henchmen charged to where the goblins were gathered, drinking together to ambush them while they were gradually getting drunk. The whole group. VG pushed the door open fiercely and stormed inside to capture them. VG firmly thought to himself, "Together, we will secure my position and our future at that time." Gelma took the lead in killing the goblins who were obstacles on their path, making Virgil unable to help but praise. "You are like my own son, Gelma, my firstborn I chose." Back to the present, OS1 trembled from betrayal. He kept wondering why he did that, but I don't understand. VG waved his hand to reassure and said, "Don't deceive yourself. When I chose you and Tu Mo, they were my right and left hands." His ambition left him only two choices, obey or rebel. Then he turned and put the clay statue back in its place. He exhaled deeply, thinking silently, "That was inevitable since I accepted all of you. I taught that this world is unfair, chaotic, and cruel. I want all of you to achieve great things, without being bound by moral laws or gods. However, you reap what you sow." Boss OS1 finally regained composure, crossed his legs, and looked at Vogel, asking, "So what shall we do with him, boss?" Vogel sneered and coldly continued, "Don't worry, the arena is being built right now. We just need to wait for the results." Oswan was startled and hurriedly said, "Is that why you told Gelma to send those heads to the game?" Vogel just nodded and replied, "Exactly." Oswan asked confusedly, "But boss, using the heads of the Payog family is a bit excessive." And VG rubbed his chin lightly and said, "For a 5-star digger, it's not like people like that. Payog hesitate to commit crimes when they see benefits for themselves, but when it comes to limits, we think we can shed the past." "Boss?" He laughed, nearly a full laugh, and coldly continued, "I never told them to kill or kidnap women. They did it themselves. But when their conscience bites, they blame me." Oscar asked back, "But you didn't stop them?" Boss and Virgil shook their heads and replied, "No, not exactly. If I spent all my time supervising them, they wouldn't have grown this big by now. And finally, it was useful." He paused for a moment and then continued, "His sons are dead. At least that way his life has more meaning." Virgil recalled the past, smiled brightly, and said, "Fortunately, Bolo saved his wife and daughter from Gelma's reach. I guarantee they have been taken to a safe place. That's all I could do." He looked up at Oscar and ordered in a deep voice, "Inform Gelma. Tell him to report. Gather the army and attack the game's forces. That young man has built quite a large army. It's time we test them." Oscar nodded and replied, "Yes, boss." With GA, he reached out, took the flute, and raised it to his lips as he fell into thought. "Don't make me doubt the game if you really are yourself in the game base discussing the battle plan with everyone. You just go with the forces to block the other routes. Their army will have to pass through the corpse-eating cave. That's where we want to hit." Then the game turned to ask Vaughn if the barricades were ready. Vaughn immediately replied, "The soldiers said they were ready by tomorrow morning, even if they had to die." The game looked at Vaughn with cold eyes. The tone became cold and warned it would be like that if they were not ready when Gelma's army arrived. Vaughn quickly answered, "Yes, sir. I will remind them of that." He hesitated and said with an uneasy expression, "Sir, I am a bit worried. The soldiers were quite scared. We are outnumbered and most of our troops have never participated in any battle before." But the game cut Vaughn off with confidence. "But listen to this. Since ancient times, generals have always sought the blessings of the gods. It seems some things are universal even if they are superstitions." Transition to the scene. A cave door opened with a mist. The game entered while calling out loudly, "Hello, is there an AI here?" Suddenly, 2 goblins wearing cloaks appeared behind the game. "Finally, you have arrived," the game asked. "I came here to meet Sister Kataga," one of the 2 goblins replied. "All AIs who want to meet the sister must be purified first." Then he pointed to the cave entrance next to them. They followed his guidance inside. Inside, they saw an old goblin woman sitting there. She said, "I am here to serve the Meron water to purify souls. You have to drink it twice." Gen recalled the last time he drank this terrible water and felt a bit shuddered. "Meron water, huh? Great, hope this time it works better than last time. Where do I get the water?" The old woman replied, "The gods will grant you. You must fill your cup with Meron water from each stone." Treo saw Gen intently watching each drop of Meron water falling. She said, "It seems you are very eager." The game also sat down and replied, "I am about to join a battle. I don't want to be absent when the battle happens." Hearing that, the old goblin woman was puzzled. Strange, most soldiers would run away from the battle. The game replied, "Maybe because I am not an ordinary person." The atmosphere seemed to become tenser. The old woman asked the game with implication, "Why is this battle so important to you?" You answered, "I suspect you will understand." The old goblin woman then spoke her thoughts. "This is the temple of Jeja, the goddess of war. AI understands better than you." In the game's eyes, there was no fear but calm acceptance. She said, "Right, this battle will decide my future. If I win, I can change this world into a better place. If I lose, the soldiers and I will be killed." He raised the cup and asked if there was enough water. The old woman told the game to drink. After a sip, the game grimaced, face pale, and vomited out his soul. "Ugh, it still tastes like a sewer." The old woman was silent for a moment, then said, "You said you would make this world better. What reason are you fighting for?" The game just put down the cup, catching more water, and answered, "Justice. I want the world to be fair." The old woman reminded him, "Young man, there is no fair world. The world is inherently unfair. Fairness for one means injustice for another. Fairness for you is injustice for others. It is an endless cycle unless there is bloodshed." Gen's eyes were sharp and full of doubt, then questioned the old woman again. It's strange that a worshipper of the war god would say that. Isn't your god bloodthirsty? The old woman replied, the god Zeus only wishes for the best for this world. Living beings become stronger through conflict. I'm quite sure the dead cannot become stronger. The winner is the strong one, Gen sneered. If I say your god is crazy, would a sister like you be offended? She heard Gen's question and laughed loudly, saying all gods are crazy if they were normal. Would the world be like this otherwise? Gen pondered, looking at the cup, voice full of determination, then asked, so do I have any other choice but to not give up? To live a life like a worm? The old woman continued, whispering in his ear. You are really foolish, heart full of anger. Living a life like a worthless worm? Why does that old lady keep whispering in my ear, so foolish, my heart full of anger? To the point of not seeing that the one fighting the enemy is wrong. The gods are not against you. You are acting according to their will. Gem ignored her words and drank the cup of water clean. He looked at her with a very serious expression and asked, then tell me, Sister Kataga, who should I fight against? She seemed to recognize Gem's difference from others and praised him. Not too foolish. I see, Gen said calmly. You have quite sharp teeth for an old nun living off plant dishes. The old nun replied, that's clever, but no, I am not a deity. The game doesn't care. Whether deity or human, I will defeat them all, and I will not spare any AI that stands in my way. The nun saw his stubbornness and still wanted to stop him. A world formed by blood will still be a world of blood and violence. Those who challenge the gods are mad, or simply carrying out their will. The game chuckled lightly. She said I was just a pawn. The old nun asked back, are you sure you are not a pawn? The game did not answer but stood up. Enough of these superstitions. I am already tired of these things from the orphanage last time, the game said, turning away. The nun asked, you do not want to pray for the blessing of God, Jeja? For your army? The game did not look back, only waved a hand, signaling no need. Let your god decide to bless the AI. I have a war to win, the game said, and returned. Vaughn immediately asked, how is it, sir? The game's expression was very unstable but still answered, it's fine. The war god has decreed to gather everyone. While he was still thinking, not knowing what to say to everyone, they gathered. The game just started to speak. Everyone wants probably. Before he could finish, a loud shout came. The nun has arrived. The nun appeared, surprising everyone. General, may I bless your army before the upcoming battle? The nun raised both hands high and declared loudly in front of everyone, brave warriors, Jeja, the goddess of war, has sent me to bless you and grant you the strength to defeat your enemies. She also ordered me to give your general a new name, the name of a great warrior worthy of it. Therefore, the game will be known as Lep, the Liberator. Gen was very surprised to hear the nun say that. Below, the AI also shouted loudly, Lep. Gen immediately turned to the nun. What is this? The nun did not let Gen finish and looked at him with determined eyes. Your time in the shadows is over, Lep. Let the gods see what you can do. Elsewhere, two wounded soldiers were helping each other into the base. Him frowned. You're here. The scar-faced man was a bit surprised. Oh, Tumo? Him asked. Is this person a SAO? Ah, nothing. He just slipped and hit his head. 2. Mo heard this and said, bring him out and take care of him. Before he left, the scar-faced man turned back and warned, be careful, Gelma is not happy. Tumo replied, thanks, I will try not to make mistakes. Tumo arrived at a tent where Gelma was cleaning his weapon. Seeing Tumo, he asked, here to watch the battle? 2. Mo did not answer but questioned him. Don't you think you're being too harsh on your people? Gelma calmly replied, it's just discipline, nothing else. 2. Mo asked irritably, then why did you ignore me? Am I nothing? Gelma was speechless and could not answer. 2. Mo continued. Gen, I don't want to be Verg's successor. Do I have any other choice? Tell me, Gelma replied irritably. You can refuse. A conflict broke out between 2. Mo and Gelma. 2. Mo frowned. Do you really think Verg will accept that, SAO? If you were him, would you accept it? That's not right. I don't want to lose you. Gelma was furious, glaring at him and shouting. You want me to ignore Verg's attack order, game? 2. Mo immediately exploded, eyes full of anger, shouting at him. Don't pretend to be stupid. We all know what I'm talking about. Verg already knows. Gelma looked at him with cold eyes. Of course he knows. Why else would he send me here? This whole campaign was to eliminate me from the start. If I win, my troops will be injured, and I can't challenge him. If I lose 2. Mo interrupted, then go to him and beg for forgiveness. Say you will be loyal. Suddenly, Gelma softened, gently stroking 2. Mo's head. 2. Mo, have you forgotten what SH said? 1 path leads to glory, but 2 will only bring tragedy. Suddenly, a soldier shouted loudly, Commander, the troops are ready! Gelma put on his armor while instructing 2. Mo, no matter what you and Verge think, I'm not stupid. My scouts report all of Game's movements. This will end before noon. He immediately said to Lep Gelma, hearing that he didn't understand anything. So Haimo immediately said, "Let him know! My spy said that currently he is claiming to be Lep. Last night he was blessed by the priestess of Jeja with the title Lep, the Liberator," Gelma said with a disdainful tone. "Really? The Liberator is pathetic," Tumo reminded. "Tell your scout to be more careful. That might not be the only surprise he's hiding." Gelma, full of confidence, he could be blessed by the gods 100 times over. "I don't care either. My victory is inevitable because I follow SH's path." Tumo doubted. "You still believe that, right? You still think you will become yourself again after SAO," Gelma said reluctantly, "and you still refuse to believe." Tumo said, "The legendary SH is just a myth, a character in stories. Do you really believe there was once a small monster who conquered all the people in the forest and founded a great tribe, consisting of hundreds of clans? SAO. What about the part where he suddenly grew stronger and changed form after every few battles? SAO is not just big muscles but also grows in size and strength with each new battle." Gelma, with a determined spirit, "Nothing is impossible for those chosen by the gods." Haimo still tried to persuade. "Then why is there nothing left of SAO? If he was so great and unified everything, then where is all that?" Then Gelma said, "Tumo, I thought you were familiar with your own history. After his children poisoned him, they fought each other until almost nothing remained. And no one can restore the ancient secrets because the monster is always in a state of battle. We need a new sage to recreate the world." Tumo looked at Gelma, who had prepared his battle weapons, and asked, "So that will be you, SAO, and VG? You will fight him?" Gelma lifted the curtain while walking and said, "The world must change him, and I don't care who I have to step over to do it." Coming out of the tent, Gelma raised his weapon high and shouted, "All right, everyone, it's time to crush some little bugs. We only have 10 days before the expedition, so let's finish this quickly and go home. Ready?" The soldiers shouted in unison, "Yes, Commander!" Tumo silently watched Gelma's back leave and shed tears, silently praying, "Take care, brother. May SH protect you." Gelma looked straight ahead, leading the fierce army forward. Suddenly, he raised his hand and signaled the soldiers to pause. A man ran up to report to the commander, "They have set up obstacles at the end of the cave, just a few hundred kilometers away." Aquilus is a unit of measurement used by the Goblin tribe, named after the ancient armored warriors of legend, AN Iron, all about 2 meters tall. Gelma asked his subordinate how many there were. He replied, "I see about 20. Gelma silently calculated, "There must be at least 30 there." He asked his subordinate again and learned from other scouts that all the side caves were blocked. As for the few houses around the cave's edge, only old people and children were hiding inside, scared. Hearing this, Gelma laughed loudly, full of pride. "Good, we need witnesses for what will happen here today." Suddenly, there was a report behind them to the commander. Gelma turned around and saw the Virgo army advancing. Seeing this, the subordinate wearing a helmet said to the one who just reported, "Fool, he's here to ensure we fight and win. Otherwise, what else?" Then he hesitated and said to Gelma, "If so, then the SAO commander won't join the game." He smiled slightly. "Interesting. Now get 300 more armed men. Maybe this battle will be balanced." Seeing everyone silent and looking at each other, Gelma shouted loudly, "SAO, why the long face? He's here to witness our victory." "Do you really think we will lose to a nobody and those diggers?" SAO and the soldiers exchanged awkward looks, then simultaneously raised their weapons and shouted loudly, "Yes, Commander." Seeing this, Gelma was extremely excited. "That's the spirit! Now let VG see what we can do." On the game army side, Vaughn looked toward the other side and reported, "Sir, they have stopped advancing." Gen replied, "I see. It seems it's time to rest." Vaughn caught Gen's weapon and asked, "Are you really going, SAO?" Gen calmly replied, "Where else but SAO?" "That's tradition, isn't it?" Vaughn wondered. "Isn't that a waste of time, SAO? I mean, they will attack us anyway." Gen looked at Vaughn firmly. Vaughn said, "If you want to lead others, there is one thing you must remember. The battle's outcome was decided before it even began. This is a golden opportunity to improve our chances of winning," he said as he moved forward. "So Vaughn still insists on following you. How do you plan to do that?" Game responded by making him want to drink my blood. At the same time, Gelma was also heading toward Game. He spoke first. "You are Game." "Humph, I thought it would be an AI. Impressive. Not such a shorty like that," Game said coldly. "I prefer to be called Lep, and you are." Master Game doesn't know his own name. Gelma looked even more arrogant. "You don't know I am an AI? You're even more foolish outside. My name is Gelma, and I will be the one to finish you. Game is no ordinary person either." He looked at him with contempt. "Gelma, so that's all VG thinks I deserve?" Turning back, he said to his master, Send OS. One loser or Hymo here, Game said as he turned and waved his hand, signaling, "You're not worth my time." Gelma clenched his teeth in anger, his hand gripping the pathetic bug. Suddenly he paused, then laughed loudly. Game turned back. "Did I say something funny?" Gelma said with delight. "You came here with childish tricks? When I crush the rats you gather, I will ask my new slaves what turned you into this. Then I will make them compose a legendary song, telling the story of the weak, foolish one crushed under my heel." Suddenly he was startled. His pupils shrank when he saw Game before him with the aura of a jealous god. He just turned and said, "Pray for forgiveness from any god you believe in, because you will get nothing from me." Gelma returned to his troops suspiciously. "What did I just see?" Then he reassured himself, "No, it's nothing." Then he shouted loudly, "I will reward anyone who brings me the head of that brat." Gelma's troops charged toward Game's troops. Gelma shouted, "Advance! The first to break through the barricade will receive 20 merits from me." Suddenly bullets flew toward Gelma's legion, surprising him. What's that?" Many of his soldiers were hit before they could react, forcing him to hold them back. Meanwhile, looking at Game, he was very calm, standing with arms crossed, making Gelma even more frustrated. He gripped his weapon tightly and charged forward. Vaughn continued moving, the soldiers comforting each other. "They're just slingshots, don't slow down everyone," Gelma screamed, charging to crush them all, while Game remained calm, standing high above watching their frenzied advance. Vaughn spoke up. "Sir, I think we've angered them." Everything seemed to be going according to Game's plan. He jumped down and said to Vaughn, "Good, Vaughn. Tell the archers to retreat when out of ammo, and remind them to watch the guideposts. Have the spearmen protect the barricades. As long as possible, it's time to prepare for the next phase." Meanwhile, Gelma thought to himself, "Do they really think this scrap metal can stop me?" Then he ordered his soldiers to be ruthless. A soldier from Gelma's side broke through the shield of Game's army, excitedly climbing up. "Come on, fresh meat, come back here, it's dinner time." Suddenly he looked down and saw a rope, picking it up and wondering, "What's this?" Seeing that, Game ordered his troops to retreat. Gelma still stood there observing the battle, unaware it was good game. His subordinate reported, "Commander VG is watching us." Gelma ignored the subordinate's words, still full of arrogance. Turning back to say to his father, "Father, enjoy the show. Your turn will come soon, father." Suddenly, a huge fire broke out. All his soldiers were engulfed in flames. Only then did he realize and shouted in despair, "Soldier, what should we do, Commander?" A huge fire covered the scene ahead. OS suddenly spoke, "They've lost the advantage." Tumo nearby immediately objected, "They will regain it soon." OS, he sent people to get water and blankets from the houses. It's only a matter of time before they break through the defenses. Loser stood there mockingly. Pathetic teasing, help the idiots, don't let the enemy escape. OS then pointed forward and said, "No AI will escape, loser. Look." After looking in the direction of the hand of the person next to him, his eyes lit up with surprise. The Tumo also looked that way with surprised expressions. "There's an army rushing here from afar." Behind them carried a blazing fire approaching this place. One of them suddenly shouted, "Jack's army." OS stood there mumbling that Jack would crush him if he dared to run away, then immediately teased him from beside. "This is no different from a trap hole. Who wants to bet? I bet 20 on that brat, Tumo," seemingly unable to tolerate his annoying attitude. Then shouted, "Disgusting, this is our brother's life, and you are betting recklessly. Are you stupid?" So far, it seems they don't care much, they just smile. The real person doesn't trust our brother Tumo, but OS now says, "I need some more bonus points." 20 on Gelma. Tumo also refuses to lose. Quickly speaks up, "Fine, 20 from me too." Loser just finished calculating and laughed heartily. "Great, they are starting to move again. Over there, subordinates are talking to Commander Gelma. We have taken special items from his houses." He used fire items while speaking. "Good. Use them as shields and barricades." "We will have more ammo," one of them said urgently. "We should do something to break through that defense layer." Gelma now feels a surge of confidence that he will win. He shouts loudly and pitifully, "All we do is just a game of hide and seek. SAO on this side is asking subordinates about our numbers." Vaughn, standing behind, immediately reports, "Sir, it seems 2 dead and 5 wounded." After grasping the situation, Game speaks up, "Understood. It seems we lost a quarter of our troops in the attack. Still not a fair fight, but that's acceptable." Vaughn looks a bit confused and reports, "Sir, about Jack and the soldiers." Game then smirks and tells them to focus on the present. "Don't worry about the future. Jack is just a problem if we lose 7. "And we will lose 7, right, Vaughn?" "No, sir, we won't." Game's face is full of confidence. "Very good. Prepare the signal horn. Below the enemy team start holding shields and quickly charge towards the castle. Quickly the bullets fired cannot penetrate that shield. They are shot at and then strongly bounce off." Gelma behind the shield continuously commands soldiers to hold the shield firmly. The subordinates nearby report to the commander. Look at the enemy, they are falling apart. Then a group runs scattered around. A weird smile suddenly appears. Gelma's voice becomes more excited. The rats are doing what they do best. We will clean them up later. Around are his soldiers shouting in unison. Hurry up, brothers, hurry up more. The shield bearers are even more determined to advance. Vaughn on this side becomes more anxious. Sir, our soldiers are fleeing. Gen stands there observing a bit then speaks. I see it, Vaughn. Do you know the difference between a good leader and a great leader? Vaughn is a bit confused and replies, no, sir. Game says firmly, a good leader always tries to fix their past mistakes, but a great leader knows they must look in all directions, not just behind or ahead, below, on both sides. There is fierce fighting over there. Gelma is still immersed in excitement without any caution when suddenly a shout makes him stop. What is that? Then the shield suddenly stops, making Gelma running into it. He looks at his injured leg with a twisted face. Gelma picks up a spike trap, so that's why he ran away to distract us. A sudden sound echoes across the battlefield. Gelma suddenly freezes. The signal horn, a subordinate nearby, quickly covers the commander's head. We are in trouble. Gelma throws the spike away. A bit impatient, I know, idiot, I have eyes. The subordinate continues. No, commander, it's the huts. There is another army inside those huts in the rain. The arrow has a small figure darting through the night and then slips inside. Where the shields are protecting, now the enemy is using wooden shields to form a cage. Protecting those inside, arrows are continuously shot by those outside at the protected cage. Virgil's eyes show contemplation. Loser laughs happily. Seems my money is still safe. Mo stands there a bit surprised and says, Gelma is trapped. Dad, let me send some people to rescue them. Loser's eyes full of contempt speak. That's his battle, Mo, just let him rot there. Mo stands there angrily, his face full of rage. He is our brother, Loser. How can you say that? OS shouts. Enough! Then turn to look at VG, the commander of your decision, his eyes now unable to hide the murderous intent. Gelma below was still being continuously pressured. Where did that brat find such an army? A voice cut through his shout. Is that Pog's wife? Making him turn his head to look. A subordinate pointed over there. Over there, that weird girl wearing a red armband. And over there is Konek's father and Mon's sister, he muttered. I know most of these guys here. Hen was chewing while speaking. I thought the kid lost a few screws when he said we were gathering the families of those betrayed by Gelma. But there really are many. Turns out it's a swarm of crazy ants that can even kill a giant rock. Jack looked a bit annoyed, saying, the giant isn't dead yet. Seems like he doesn't care much. Do you think so? Jack's eyes were full of murderous intent. Nothing is more dangerous than a beast cornered. Suddenly a shout rang out. The commander is Lep. A vague figure approached from afar. Lep approached arrogantly from afar. Gelma quickly raised his eyes to look at the person opposite him and whispered to the person beside him, this guy really likes to talk. Wait until he gets closer. I will signal to charge and kill him. Give the order. The subordinate hurriedly whispered clearly to the commander. Gelma's voice became more arrogant. Come here to bore us? Brat, come here and tell me what you want. Game outside spoke calmly. Sounds good, but I didn't come here to talk to you. Gelma's eyes grew angrier. What? Game continued. I came to talk to your people. Then he shouted loudly, everyone listen to me. This is not your battle. Everyone at the scene looked confused, looking at each other. Gelma's voice grew louder. You start explaining, the Greens just want us to fight each other to drain our strength. The best among us die because of fighting, killing each other while they laugh and enjoy the sunlight above. You are not my enemies. You are my brothers and I don't want to harm any of you. I know you were forced to be here. I know you don't want to be here, nor to die here for those who don't care about your lives. I came to say that anyone who lays down their weapons will be free and keep their lives. His words made Gelma feel threatened. He shouted back, that will never happen. If we lay down our weapons, you will kill us all. The people there seemed to not believe it. They shouted loudly, that's right, better to drag you down together than die without fighting. Gelma's voice was somewhat arrogant. You are wasting words, you insect. Do you think OG lets us survive? Every member of OG's army must fight to the death. Game shrugged, showing indifference after hearing their words. He said, maybe yes, maybe no. Have you ever wondered why he didn't help you today? It's because he wants Gelma dead. Gelma and all his followers. Game pointed at the soldiers far away. He didn't come to support you. He came to kill you. If you win, he's cleaning up. His hand pointed straight at UG, standing proudly there. And as long as Gelma lives, you will continue to be forced to fight and die because of him. So in my view, you only have two choices. Either all of you die or Gelma dies. Game shrugged as if this was obvious. At that moment, a look of utter fear appeared on Gelma's face. A person whispered tremblingly, eyes confused, Commander, is that true? Another immediately interrupted urgently. He said VG will massacre us all if we don't kill that person. The crowd began to stir. Whispers rose chaotically. Maybe VG just wants him to stop. We are just following orders, right? Gelma's eyes widened, his face pale from shock. Everyone no, never. He tried to shout over the noise. I am carrying out SH's will. This is for all of you. Game crossed his arms, a contemptuous smile clearly on his face. You mean for yourself? Gelma's veins bulged, eyes bloodshot. He roared and swung a staff toward him. A soldier trembling stepped out from the fifth row, hands tightly gripping an iron bar. Gelma suddenly froze, eyes full of astonishment. He stared blankly, looking down at an iron bar that had pierced straight through Gelma's belly from when he groaned and collapsed, eyes vacant. Other soldiers stepped forward, hands still gripping weapons, voice trembling but firm. Sorry, Commander. The kid is your fault. Don't blame us. The next awakened one, right Gelma, gritting his teeth and tightening his axe handle. Your fury explodes. He wildly swings the axe to chop the one who just said he would kill you with his own hands, tears streaming down Gelma's cheeks as the light gradually fades. In the wild white eyes, so this is the feeling of the Lord in his dying moments. Childhood memories suddenly flood back. How could you do that to him? The cold blades pierce deep into his body. He kneels in a pool of blood. Son, I'm sorry. A soldier in the fifth row kneels on one knee and firmly says, We surrender, sir! Gen and Vaughn simultaneously turn toward the sound as Verg advances. A mighty legion gradually appears from afar. The leader strides with proud and cold aura. He solemnly looks straight at the Lord with deep eyes. Two Mo kneel before Gelma's corpse, tears streaming, gripping the sword tightly, eyes full of hatred. I will kill all of you. Starting with you, two. Mo rush forward, but a deep voice echoes from behind. Wait! He startles and turns around, eyes wide open. That bastard VG calmly points forward, cold eyes. Two Mo panic and look back behind him. A mighty army silently waits for orders. Gen squints, his gaze burning ominously. The Lord looks at him silently, deeply thoughtful for a long time. Then he turns around, waves his hand, signaling the whole army to retreat. He grits his teeth and finally turns away, but doesn't forget to glance back with a hateful look. He shrugs, the corner of his mouth curling into an arrogant smile. The Lord's legion gradually disappears behind the mist, leaving only silence. He curiously asks softly with a hint of surprise, We won already, sir? Why is that? Game looks straight ahead, voice low. This was only a small skirmish, Vaughn, not the end of the war. Next time won't be so easy. And Vaughn spreads his hands trying to persuade, I think not. But today we did win, sir. That's worth noting. He closes his eyes and smiles faintly. You're right. It's worth it. Bring out the wine for everyone. They deserve it. He smiles brightly, salutes in a military style, voice loud and clear. Yes, Commander. The lively atmosphere hasn't spread yet. Then another voice hurriedly interrupts. Commander, we're in trouble. Both immediately turn around. The soldier pants and quickly says, Jack's men are stealing all the general's strategies and the clans are trying to kill all the prisoners. The crowd surrounds the bodies on the ground, constantly looting. Game rushes forward, cold, commanding voice. Stop what you're doing immediately. Instantly, a squatting guy sneers without looking at him and replies disdainfully, Get lost, brat. We're just cleaning up your mess. Game tilts his head, hand on spear shaft, serious voice. This is my problem to clean up. Lead your soldiers away and don't come back until I and Rack reach an agreement. Loud footsteps echo from afar. The guy gathers things into a basket, orders weakly, Let this brat know who's boss here. He holds a dagger, smirks with sharp eyes. You seem to have made quite a profit, huh? Hand them over or it won't be good. Then more chaotic footsteps sound rapidly. He closes his eyes and sighs, clearly tired, raising the spear to warn, I don't want to do this. Wick smiles, preparing to pull out a stick, replies disdainfully, Fine, then I'll take them from your corpse. Before finishing, Wick takes a full punch, staggering. Game's eyes widen in shock as Wick falls. He frowns angrily and rushes forward. What the hell are you doing? The guys tremble and stammer, explaining, He's furious, veins bulging on his forehead with every word. You want to lick the arena clean with your tongue this week? You want to say that to me, right? The crowd sways, cold sweat pouring, screaming in fear. No, we didn't. The tone threatens seriously. You want to do night watch outside the Scorpion's den? They hurriedly shake their heads as if scared, pointing at Weak with a powerful voice. Then why are you still standing there? Drag this idiot out of my sight immediately. Don't let me catch you doing this again. The kid rubs his temples, sighs, watching the three guys disappear, then forces a smile. Sorry about that, kid. These idiots will get me killed. He smiles softly, handing the spear to the soldier behind. Thanks for your help. Wink, half joking, half serious. You don't have to say that. I just want to explain to their families why they died so stupidly. Gen shrugs, half smiling. I didn't intend to kill them. Just to teach them a lesson. He nods slightly, eyes briefly distracted. After what you did to Gelma, I'm surprised they still dare to do this. Some types never learn. Do you understand? From afar, a deep, warm voice calmly reminded, You are the one who recruited them. Hen quickly turned his head, bowed, then scratched his head sincerely. Yes, sorry, Commander. Hen crossed his arms and smiled faintly at Rack. Thank you for helping at the last minute. He shook his head modestly. As my deputy said, you don't need to thank me. But it's nothing. He stuck out his tongue, crossed his arms jokingly. So, does that mean you won't claim any share of the spoils? Vac laughed heartily with a humorous tone. Well, the agreement was 2/3, but after that battle, I'll accept half. Game smiled, holding up 2 fingers. Isn't half too much? You're the one saying it. We are the ones who fought. Then let me take 8/10. The scoreboard revealed the current score was 2/10 for him and 8/10 for you. Vac closed his eyes, shook his head sarcastically. See what happens when you're generous? People will always try to take advantage of you, Chu. You fought alone and won with minimal losses of 7, but you couldn't have done it without my help. Half is the lowest I can accept. Hen raised 3 fingers, continuously arguing. We didn't just eliminate one of your enemy's commanders. You also gained some spoils without losing anyone. 7/3. Both sides negotiated back and forth. Gelma was just a minor nuisance. Besides, I helped you find the families of his victims. He smiled smugly, still holding up 3 fingers. Indeed, you helped, but I was the one who convinced them to come. Still 7/3, but you get to keep Gelma's axe. Vac grabbed his hand firmly, decisively agreeing. The lizard on the ground groaned. When Hen's cold eyes pointed at it, Game turned to Hen, speaking slowly in a low voice. That belongs to you. He cleared his throat and shouted, Order given! Soldiers, loot everything from the first fence onward. Do it immediately! He crossed his arms and called Vaughn for a brief question. What about the prisoners? Are they guarded? Vaughn panicked and replied immediately, sweat streaming. Sir, the families don't want to hand them over. They left? We convinced them. Game nodded satisfactorily with a cold tone. Good. When the families leave, strip the prisoners down to their underwear and let them go. Remember to share 1/3 of the spoils with Jack. They had an agreement. Vaughn nervously wiped sweat, stammering. I really don't like that person, sir. Game tilted his head with a calm gaze. We don't need to like him. Vaughn, we just need to cooperate while we still have a common enemy. Vaughn anxiously asked, What will happen when we no longer have a common enemy? Hen smiled, eyes cold. Then we'll see who is stronger. For now, we'll deal with that after the expedition ends. Vaughn looked around nervously, hands trembling as he held the stick. A roar echoed, making him close his eyes. The stick clattered wildly, hitting 7 AI units. Vaughn slipped and fell, lips kissing the ground painfully. Vaughn grimaced, rubbed his head, groaned softly, trying to push himself up. Hen stepped forward, bowed, and asked, Vaughn, what are you doing here? He stammered fearfully, Sir, sorry, sir, He bent down to pick up the stick, jokingly mocking. Trying to catch breakfast? Vaughn frowned, sticking out his tongue in pain. No, sir, those things are terrible. He leaned toward Game, earnestly asking, Sir, have you ever tried them? He raised an eyebrow, trying to recall but couldn't say yes. Vaughn twisted his face grimly, mumbling, I'm telling you, you won't want to try. Just trust me. When I was little, whenever I had trouble, my mother would catch a few and fry them to eat. Is that so? Hen glanced around thoughtfully. I'll remember that, but I don't blame you for being scared. Where are the workers and vendors from this morning? He replied immediately, eyes scanning the tightly closed houses. All the AIs not participating in today's expedition were hiding. Sir? He frowned in surprise. Hiding for what? Vaughn awkwardly explained. It's the goblins, sir. When they come, it's a bit chaotic. Hen stroked his chin thoughtfully. Hiding everything even from your wife? The boy blinked, mumbling. Sir, Hen just pointed behind calmly. Just a saying from the countryside. Let's go. We don't want to be caught when they arrive. The two pretended to walk up the rugged slope, dust lightly scattering underfoot. Vaughn squinted cautiously, asking, Sir? I mean no harm, but is there something bothering you today? He tilted his head, eyes flashing a bit of mystery. Nothing special. Why? The boy slung his stick over his shoulder hesitantly. Well, with everything happening. You are very quiet and calm, Hen sneered, slightly smiling. Aren't I always calm? Vaughn hurriedly added. You're too calm, sir. I mean, you always act calmly, but when you're too calm, it's because you are angry about something. Chu Moy looked at him curiously and asked, Really? And what else did you notice, Vaughn? He was silent for a moment, then muttered, You like to smile, don't you, Vaughn? hurriedly explaining when he saw the disdainful look from Game. Don't look at me like that. You really like it. You always smile, and only when something bothers you and makes you angry, or when you want that AI to die, then you don't smile. He looked up at the sky. Is that so? He nodded quickly. That's right. Game asked further. Anything else? Vaughn thought deeply and said, if there is something that really makes you angry like that, it's when someone ruins your plan or your sister's. He was silent, looking up at the sky, then softly called Vaughn. Gen's expression suddenly darkened. You're walking on thin ice. He frowned in confusion. What is thin ice? He was silent, letting Vaughn understand, then sighed and explained, it's a way of saying you're doing something you shouldn't because it's very dangerous. He gaped, half admiring, half scared. You really know a lot, sir, but I apologize if I said too much. Game turned his head to look seriously at Vaughn and said, just be more careful next time. He recalled Rosa's face and gritted his teeth in pain. But you are not wrong. There really is a problem with my sister. Gen recalled Rosa's angry face. A silent torment surged up. My sister has been angry with me since the battle with Gel. The image of her scolding and not having time to smooth her face appeared. She thinks we cannot avoid a war with Verg now, and blames me for that. Vaughn hurriedly advised in a gentle tone, Sir, that's just her personality. She has been working to take care of both of you, with you using your merits to buy necessities and equipment for us. She must have faced many difficulties, and everything is getting more expensive. Do you know why? But according to our sources, external supplies are decreasing. Something at the higher level is interfering with food supply. He spoke in a low, serious tone. This is a problem because groups like us, Jack's group and VG, pay their people with food, so if prices rise, maintaining control will become difficult. Pay attention and report back to me if you hear anything when we reach the gathering area. He stepped quickly, anxious, mixed with concern. Yes, sir, but the two of them grew up together. That can't be the only problem, right? Gen frowned, a displeased expression clear. Isn't he her fiancé? Vaughn asked in surprise. Her fiancé? He answered briefly. Vaughn remembers that carefree name. Upon hearing his affirmation, his face turned pale. And he likes her? Gen rolled his eyes and gritted his teeth, unable to hide his annoyance. Vaughn said, Your mouth is too fast, right? He trembled and raised his hand in a military salute. Yes, sir. He sighed deeply, his voice low but resolute. Anyway, that's right. He cares about her, and although he tries to appear indifferent and aloof, he can become quite emotional whenever he believes my actions might endanger her. Vaughn eagerly asked, Really? What did he say? Game recalled when he was scolded, his eyes bitter. I'm just another thug tarnishing Raymond's reputation, and she would be better off if I died because I only cling to her and bring nothing. He seriously proposed, Sir, just give the order. After we return, I will visit him with a few others at night. We will wear masks so no one detects us. Gen was stunned, turned to look at Vaughn, then turned away with a serious expression. Vaughn said, You can't do that. He hesitated and suspiciously asked, Are you sure? We can't just beat him a little to make sure? He smiled slightly, half contemptuous, half sympathetic. Although I appreciate your enthusiasm and concern for protecting my honor, leave him alone. If something happens to me, I know she will be safely protected. Vaughn nodded, his face slightly less worried. Yes, sir. If you say so, I guess I understand what he is thinking. Game shook his head wearily. I understand too, but there are easier ways to enjoy a last meal. Before going into battle, the two stopped. He looked ahead. We're here. In front of them, a dense crowd was surging forward. The two lined up to pass through the city gate. A voice rang out mockingly. Look who's here. Kui crossed his arms, standing there with a harsh expression. I heard you've been busy, kid. He panicked and covered his mouth. That's not your foster father. Why are you frowning? I did what needed to be done. Kui looked at him seriously. But is that really the right thing to do? I don't mind if you form your own group, but don't you think you've crossed the line? How can you tell the guards instead of sending your people to risk their lives? He quickly explained to reassure. We already told the guards. The supervisor frowned and spoke irritably. Really? No one told me about this? He smiled softly, calm expression. VG has the support of the nobles. Do you really think they'll let you interfere? He was silent, frowning, arms crossed, looking down at the game, then slightly raised his head to look at Kui with determination. He closed his eyes, sighed, then said, You're right. She asked further, slightly uneasy. But let me ask you something, kid. Do you think Gak will be happy with what you've become? He bit his lip. Memories of his long-unseen father surfaced. The game's father frowned, his gentle but sharp advice. I don't know what you'll do in the future, but please don't disappoint him by becoming one of those monsters. All right, he smiled and replied. What I will do in the future is to make this world a better place. I promise you and him. Kui waved his hand, his facial muscles finally relaxed. Just don't get yourself killed, that's all. The game turned around, optimistic tone calling him, "Come on, Vaughn, let's go find them." The crowd gathered in the hall. The sound of footsteps and whispers blended into a chaotic chorus as the game and Vaughn walked inside. Neatly dressed like two spears cutting through the sea of people, now watching, tears, sharp gaze paused at a small detail. Someone was trying to sell an item in their hand, mumbling as if trying to attract attention. He stepped forward to them. Threatening attitude. "Go sell your junk somewhere else. Or better yet, shove it down your throat." A guy barged in with a casual, mocking tone. "Hey LQ, forgot the water bottle, and we're trying to find one for him. That price is good." A cold glare warned, "Use your brain, kid. That's a Barasa bottle. Their shells are too soft and will rot in a few days. You need to find an Opasa bottle for yourself." He gently rubbed the bottle at his side, proudly answering, "This one has lasted me through 2 expeditions. And it still hasn't leaked a drop yet." Mon sighed, half joking, half worried. "They'll die within a week, let's see." He waved goodbye to the group gently, agreeing, "Yeah, but it won't be from lack of water. Do you see those soldiers, Mon?" He pointed in a direction, serious expression. "They're over there. In front of them is a dense crowd. A wall of people, bustling." He put his hands on his hips, asking cautiously, "Did you see the commander and Vaughn?" Facing him, scratching his head awkwardly, he answered nervously, "They'll be late. They're staying far away near the supervisor's building." From afar, someone ran over hurriedly, panicked tone. "Mon, we have trouble. Some of VG's people are causing problems with the rock group," she asked anxiously. "How bad is it?" The other person gasped. "Very bad. Most of Jack's people haven't arrived yet." He quickly ordered everyone present to gather. "Jack has sided with us, and we owe him." He panicked, pointing to the ground with extreme unease. "What do we do about the commander? Should we meet him here?" Both turned their heads simultaneously in another direction, eyes tense like a drawn bow. "Over there," he gasped, pointing shakily. "Oh my God, sir, did you see that goblin? It has 3 heads! 3 heads!" The game snapped irritably. "You really need to pay more attention to your surroundings," he asked confusedly. "Why is that, sir? This is a neutral zone, not VG or any other gang boss's territory. Any other group would harm us." He frowned, sighed in frustration, and spoke to those watching us. "Go." Vaughn lowered his head, looking around, shrinking, whispering, "Is someone following us?" Gen hit him on the head, sternly scolding. "Don't look anymore. If we reveal that we've noticed them, they might attack." "They've been following us since we entered the gate," Vaughn quietly asked. "Why haven't they attacked us yet?" He coldly analyzed. "Either they're waiting for us to reach the position they want, or we've already taken the path they want." He frowned, sensing the danger approaching. "Sounds bad, right?" The game stopped and asked, "What do you think we should do?" Vaughn hesitated, pointing at himself, stammering, "Sir, are you asking me?" He tilted his head, sharp eyes scanning around. "You are my subordinate. Your job is not only to follow orders, but also to think independently. I need to know that when I am not present, the soldiers will be well taken care of." Gay smiled arrogantly. "Then help me get out of this situation. I will follow your orders." He was confused, his mind spinning from the sudden responsibility. "My orders," he said in a deep voice, clearly directing. "There are 4 people behind us, 3 on the right and 3 more on the left. They are using a standard pack hunting tactic to track us. There may also be more in front or further away." Vaughn was trembling and nervous. "Why so much? Sir, do you need me?" Gay glanced sideways, calming himself down. Vaughn took a deep breath and thought. Pretending this was a practice exercise, he tried to breathe deeply, hypnotizing himself to relax. "Relax. I need to relax." Vaughn listened carefully, cautiously moving according to the surrounding sounds. Every nerve was tense. He turned his head, whispering, "Sir, please follow me." Vaughn pushed through the crowd. The two moved like boats gliding through a sea of people. He leaned on a person's luggage, making the person flustered and cry out, "Hey!" You two finally pushed out of the crowd. They sighed in relief. Vaughn tilted his head and quietly asked, "Any sign of them, sir?" Game glanced behind calmly and replied, "No, they have retreated. They won't dare attack us." "While we blend in with the goblin luggage carriers. Good thinking, kid." He hurriedly looked around. "Thank you, sir. Things are progressing in the right direction, right?" He nodded slightly, eyes sharp. "I think so. We can run." Approaching where the soldiers were waiting, Vaughn hurriedly reported, "Right ahead, sir. I see the rock where we told them to meet." The two approached the rock. He looked around suspiciously, lips slightly pressed. "Where are they? I don't see them." His face twisted, lips drooping. "Sir, they have been surrounded by a group inside. Two men carrying swords on their shoulders stood on the rock. "If you're looking for your people, they're not here to help you, you pests. We still have unfinished business between you and me." His eyes full of hatred, his gaze like arrows shooting straight at the two below. The two huddled close, drawing weapons from their sheaths. Eyes blazing, looking at the crowd surrounding them. Vaughn shut his eyes tightly, voice trembling, shouting, "Sir, where are the others?" Gay gritted his teeth, his words resolute as steel. "No matter what, remember what we practiced." Vaughn carefully protected each other's backs. "We'll be fine." The two stood on the high rock, raising swords to kill them. Gay suddenly recalled his barren past life. Gay passed by a bookstore, past a bus stop. His gaze casually stopped at an advertisement board. He tiredly closed his eyes, then turned away, as if trying to erase the suffocating feeling inside. The billboard clearly read typewriter. "Join today's battle. Citizenship granted through service at Arcadia Academy." Gay pressed his lips. His eyes opened again, his gaze suddenly serious. Returning to reality, he shouted and charged forward like a storm. He swung the stick wildly, each strike shaking the air, Gay's eyes full of determination, hard as tempered steel. In his past life, he truly joined the army, becoming a soldier who honed himself in fire and bullets. Gay kept training his martial skills relentlessly, day and night, sweat mixed with determination. He trained until the punching bag was torn, the sound of strikes still echoing in the air. But when Guy gasped for breath and looked back, behind him was only a cold, lonely void, reality. Gay stomped his foot, swung a strike straight into the face of an attacker charging at him, turned his back and swung his spear, slicing across another's neck. Gay panted, glanced sideways to assess the situation. He trembled. Trying to block the axes of two opponents, he frowned. His gaze locked onto another man wielding a dagger charging like a beast. In his past life, Game was equipped with armor and guns. Entering the battlefield, the survival instinct deeply ingrained in every fiber, he continuously supported teammates, charging through gunfire to eliminate enemies. Bullets tore across the sky, gunfire exploded relentlessly, pounding sounds and roars echoed everywhere on a windy, snowy night. Game was once surrounded by enemy troops, the scene deeply imprinted in his mind. At the same time, Vaughn painfully knelt on one knee, face covered in blood and dust. He gritted his teeth, mouth twisted, trying to resist. Gay quickly charged, kicked the knee, knocking one attacker away to free Vaughn. Gay helped him up. Now they were one with the memories of their past lives. The two gripped their weapons tightly. Their limbs moved in sync like a steel cord. They roared angrily, preparing to face the next wave of attack. In his past life, Game once stood alone in a sea of fire. A first squad laughed as they entered the airplane cabin, then turned to ask Private and Vanderstein, "Do you like this scenery? Let's go, we don't have all day." Game's eyes were tired then, but he still smiled determinedly. Currently, the two were panting, with dozens of blood-stained corpses at their feet. He sneered, raised his head and said coldly, "Hurry up, Tumo. What are you waiting for?" "I don't have all day." He was so angry, his face twisted, gripping his weapon tightly. Scene shifts to another place. Rune grabbed the girl's hand tightly, urging urgently, "Hurry up, Rafa. We're about to miss it." Rafa blushed, stammering awkwardly. Before she could finish, she bumped into a tall man. The impact made Rafa moan softly, while Go-Jack lowered his head, coldly glancing down. The girl frowned, her voice sharp and warning, "What are you looking at? Mind your own business." The man silently turned away, indifferent, as if he never cared. She laughed and strode alongside Rafa, whispering teasingly, "Still trying to make friends anywhere, huh? Hurry up, we're almost there." The two held hands. They weaved through the crowd, gathering toward the center of the square, where Vaughn and Jem stood alone amidst a pile of bloody corpses. Their bodies were battered, but their eyes still shone brightly. The girl was stunned, lips slightly parted in undeniable admiration. At the same time, Tu Mo and An Lao clashed, weapons striking with a dull echo. Jem knocked Tu Mo's sword out of his hand. Tu Mo suddenly widened his eyes in disbelief, biting his lip. His gaze was filled with anger mixed with sorrow. Tu Mo roared, "Demon! Like brothers, you stole him from me." An placed his hand on his hip, a contemptuous smile curling his lips. "Your brother is just a fool. He can't see what's right in front of him. Don't be as foolish as he was. Get out of the way, quickly." He angrily swung his staff again. Lao entered the desperate duel. In the distance, he was trembling, bleeding from his wounds, but still struggling to stand firm. Vaughn squinted, watching the battle with uncontrollable worry in his heart. "Sir," he bowed, opening a cloth bundle in his hand, whispering between heavy breaths, "Here it is." In his memory, Gen had once handed that item to Vaughn, his voice low but serious. "Leave it here for me to handle." "I'm counting on you." Vaughn clenched the cloth tightly and pushed through the crowd, thinking to himself, "Don't worry, sir, I won't let you down." The battle between An and Tu Mo remained intense. The clang of weapons echoed through the air. Ruin and Rafa watched breathlessly, forgetting to blink. She squeezed Rafa's hand tightly, shouting encouragement amid the crowd. "Great! Defeat him! So cool." The girl tilted her head, eyes wide. "Really? Isn't the guy with the long sword more your style?" Ruin burst out laughing proudly. "That's the one I'm talking about." Rafa smirked in response. "I know. Go." Jack's voice cut through her emotions, sounding distorted. She glared back. "Right? What do you know?" "Mercenary," he said indifferently, arms crossed. "More than just a palace guard." Ruin angrily pointed at him. "Do you want to die?" Rafa immediately tried to calm her. "Easy, Ruin," then turned to ask, "Do you think he'll win? He's just a poor miner who can't even afford proper clothes." "Go," Jack sneered coldly. "That's what happens when you're around gold and silver too long. You start judging everything by coins." While they argued, Van frowned slightly and tilted her head. Rafa heard something, fell silent, and widened her eyes. Her cheeks flushed as her gaze landed on Game. She observed every movement of him. The man's golden eyes made Rafa shiver. Her voice trembled in surprise. "Him?" She immediately pressed. "What's going on?" "Rafa, see? That's how it is." Rafa exhaled softly, eyes following Game as he dodged a deadly sword strike from that miner. "He did it on purpose." Ruin's eyes widened. "You didn't see?" "No, I didn't see. On purpose?" At that moment, Game's forehead slammed hard into Tu Mo's, producing a sharp clang. Tu Mo staggered. Before he could react, Game seized the opportunity, grabbed his opponent's sword tightly, pulled hard, and threw him over his shoulder. 7 sharp shouts rang out. "Tu." Mo fell to the ground, groaning in pain. She was stunned, stammering. "What? How?" He explained calmly. "This has never been a fight between equals. The spear wielder was just observing his opponent's movements. He always controlled everything." Gen stepped forward, pointing. The spear tip close to the trembling young man on the ground. His cold voice cut like a blade. "You lost. Let go of your grudge. Today I will spare you." The Game sneered, looking down with cold eyes like a blade. "Are you done yet?" Sweat dotted his face, blood trickling, heavy breathing. He bit his lip tightly, eyes ready to resist. The Game chuckled slyly, a crooked, challenging smile. "Not yet, but you are." Those who seemed to have fallen suddenly staggered up, trembling as they clutched their wounds. His eyes blazing red, he gave a faint smile. His hoarse voice echoed in the silent space. "They never learn from experience." The Game curled his lips, calm but cold as ice. "My offer still stands." "Let it go," he frowned, raising his head arrogantly. "Why should I do that?" His gaze darkened, jealousy heavy as steel. "'Cause I'm running out of reasons not to finish you?" He slowly stood up, body trembling but voice defiant. "You're the one who needs to rethink." He suddenly frowned, looking around suspiciously. "What the hell was that?" He smiled softly, a bright smile in his eyes. A group of people rushed from afar, shouting urgently, "Leader!" The opposing side froze, faces pale as if seeing a nightmare. They turned and fled amid Tu Mo's desperate screams. "What? No." The Game relaxed his shoulders, sheathing his sword. "Tu Mo, thanks for the fight." He gritted his teeth, grabbing his sword. Heavy breaths still echoed in the air. The square fell silent. All eyes followed the backs of the defeated as they fled. Gao Gao crossed his arms, a slight smirk on his lips. "That's right, smart indeed." Rafa frowned, confused. "What?" He tilted his head and spoke calmly. "Those guys used horns to communicate while this guy was fighting. His comrades had already called for backup." Ruin's eyes widened in admiration. "The Rayborn are really that smart, huh?" Jack glanced lightly at her, a faint smile passing. "But clearly these guys have someone to think about that." Ruin was speechless, standing silently as the wind blew through. After a while, she grabbed her friend's hand. "Let's go, Rafa, it's no longer fun." Rafa nodded, but his gaze lingered on the battlefield. On the other side, the Games group embraced, laughter bursting after life-or-death moments. His smile was radiant, but his eyes still showed caution, anyone presentient. She glanced at him once more, then softly said, "We should go now." Mon stepped forward, voice hoarse. "I sent some people to chase him." He waved his hand. "Tell them to return." "Causing trouble? The goblins here could bring disaster to all of us." And Vo tapped his chin, thinking slowly, then asked, "Is that why you didn't kill him, sir?" Gen curled his lip, smiling faintly, half joking. "Yeah, let's just say that." He looked up to see. "Why didn't he come meet us here?" He sighed, rubbing his neck tiredly. "Some VG guys caused trouble with Jack's group, so we went to help. Nothing serious came of it." Gen tapped his chin, eyes thoughtful but enough to pull him aside. "I think something happened. 2. James raised his horn when he heard Vaughn's call. Cost dated. We returned as fast as possible. He squinted mockingly. You didn't leave any mess behind, did you? He shook his head. No mess, and the Vogers have already retreated. The game smiled, tilting his head to look. That's good then. His eyes met Jack suddenly. The atmosphere turned serious. The game quietly asked, How can I help you? He smiled. I am Jack. I want to praise you for today's victory. I've been in many campaigns and never seen anyone fight as well as you. Today I want to discuss your fighting style. He tilted his head slightly, eyes flashing with curiosity. Many campaigns? He nodded. Yes, across many lands. 2 Games smiled, commanding loudly. Game, go find some mushroom wine. We shouldn't be rude to our guest. Both laughed, shaking hands firmly, he said. He and I still have much to talk about. In the early days of the Rom era, the father of all fought enemies from the void. He fell, and the world plunged into chaos. But from a drop of his blood, a new god was born, Zera. She gathered the 10 fragments of Jom. She forced the death god Dawn to forge them anew. And she was appointed the greatest general. After Jom's rebirth, she reclaimed the land from the one who emerged from the void. And his lieutenant Bungu, explained as the goddess of war, like her. She stepped into hell to reclaim Jom's soul. We will enter hell to reclaim our inheritance. You may have heard this expedition is to destroy the hip links, and that is true, but it's not the whole truth. The truth is there are ancient treasures right beneath our feet. Treasures that others were too afraid to claim in the past. He clenched his hand tightly with determination. You are the lucky ones, the chosen ones today, because this expedition is not a hunt, but a robbery. We are going down there to seize what belongs to us and enrich everyone. Bungo tried to encourage everyone, whether you are bogies, Burger Dark, or goblins. He raised his hand high. Each one of you will become a part of history. Follow me. We will fight, we will conquer, Bungu shouted, and we will win. He declared in the name of Jom. The expedition began. The crowd below immediately shouted in unison, Jom, Game exclaimed. Not the worst speech I've ever heard. Go. Jack stood next to him, sighing. Bungu is not like his brothers. He is much greedier and more ambitious. Game crossed his arms with a cold face. He said he was the son of the Jira tribe chief. He nodded firmly. Yes, this expedition is Bungu's chance to prove he is stronger than his brothers. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully. I see, Jack. Do you know what he's aiming for? He was sweating profusely. I don't understand what you mean, Jen said slowly. A prince unwillingly leading an expedition, doubling the usual number and hiring mercenaries from different races without a clear goal. And since we are going down, not up, there must be something important down there to him. At this moment, Jack also quickly thought, I understand now. Once again, your words are insightful, Lep. I will talk to people I know. His eyes flashed a complicated gleam. Me too. The sooner we find out Bungu's purpose, the better our chances of survival. 2. Mo sat down on the ground, sir. Vera angrily looked at him. Get out of my sight before I kill you. He quickly turned and left. Vera tilted his head and gave an order. From today, 2 Mo is under your command. If he wants to command again, let him deserve it. He defended. Sir, he's just trying to do the right thing for Gelma. He roared angrily. And if he succeeds, then what? If Bungu finds out, then what? How many heads will the Jira prince demand as punishment? How many more people will we lose? I understand his feelings, OS. I feel the same, but now is not the time. OS was silent for a long time, then asked, When will be the time, sir? What are we waiting for? Vera coldly glanced at 2 Mo for a long time. He smiled slyly, sickly. Many layers are very deep and many things lurk in the shadows. OS, be patient. Our opportunity will come. Switching to a new segment, the identification class of useful goblinoids by Professor Goza. Hello everyone, Professor Goza here. Some of you have asked about goblinoid society, and I'm here to explain. In the world where Lep and I live, there are several main races, including goblinoids like us. Goblinoids originated from the Ansat Empire and split into tribes after the empire collapsed. Dark is the most advanced among goblinoids, once merchants, warriors, and sailors, until conquered by humans. DK is a warrior, knight, and mercenary race, famous everywhere for their heroic talent on the battlefield. Although goblinoids, they do not belong to the Ansat Empire. The Goblin tribe is the most common among goblinoids. They spend most of their time fighting neighbors and each other. The strongest goblin tribe is Jira, who subdued Boggyburger, famous hunters and skilled trackers. But beware, their temper is as hot as their foul breath. Luckily, this type is not many. At the lowest social level, goblins are bogey, but there is still division among them. Blue Bogi are nobles in Bogi society, acting as intermediaries between goblin lords and other Bogi. Many Bogi have blue skin due to goblin blood, but they differ from goblins in smaller stature and split hands, pointing downward instead of upward. We, the reborn Bogi, are the lowest class. Our ancestors were great mages, but now we labor in mines and caves doing work other Bogi refuse. Our people have been oppressed by Jira for many generations, finally becoming a servant class for them. Thank you all for your comments and questions about the race. We hope this class helps you understand goblinoid society better. Feel free. Ask more questions in the comments below. San placed a plate on the table containing a few things that looked like dry leaves. Level 1 San and Vara stood silently, eyes full of astonishment and confusion, seemingly still not understanding what had just happened. He frowned and turned his head away, eyes flashing with discomfort and hatred, his hand slowly reaching out. Fingertips lightly touched the plate lying still on the table. She didn't bother paying more attention, drew back the curtain and stepped outside. Vara stopped. Vaughn was standing with his back turned, looking at something without opening his mouth. She strode over and grabbed his collar. Vaughn startled and quickly turned around to see Vara smiling. With a crooked smile on his face, Vaughn was dragged away by Vara with a bit of regret. He was pulled into a cave, where the scent of herbs spread thickly, covering the entire rock wall. She signaled with her hand, asking Vaughn if the worm and mushroom leaves could be turned into meat. He picked up 2 mushrooms, one with a pointed top like a roof, the other round and plump like the moon, then signaled to explain it wasn't far away. San and his group sat around the table. Everyone ate heartily. After the meal, the group stood up, adjusted their gear, then lined up neatly, heading straight forward. Level 2. Walking inside a dark cave. Gun suddenly stopped trembling, pointing ahead. His eyes panicked. Just thinking of Vara made his whole body cold. Vaughn startled and immediately dashed behind a large rock to hide. Heart pounding, he sneaked away, standing behind a giant mushroom, deep in thought, then paused. Ears perked up, a faint sound echoed somewhere in the darkness. Turning around, Vaughn saw her dragging a dead animal. After a few knife strikes, the animal was chopped into pieces. He sat down heavily, frowning, looking at the pile of meat, then pointing at it with a confused expression. Finally, they stood by a pot of boiling water, putting all the meat in to cook. Amid the thick smoke, both looked at each other and smiled. When the meat was cooked, both picked a piece and put it in their mouths. Just after biting, their eyes simultaneously lit up brightly. The scene shifted to a group of people wearing armor, carrying weapons on their shoulders, silently advancing. On the rocky slope, level BA. Just after eating, Vo signaled a warning that anyone who dared to eat the wrong rat meat would be poisoned and die. As soon as he finished speaking, both immediately jumped up, shouting, and chased a rat running wildly. After running a few steps, they stopped. The rat had brought along a whole pack surrounding the two. He sighed softly, glanced at her, her whole body dirty, then pointed to the other side. Vaughn stood a distance away, silently watching over Vara while she bathed. After bathing, Vara felt much lighter. She walked while smiling contentedly. Before he could react, Vaughn was slapped hard on the back by Vara, nearly knocking him over. He angrily pointed at her face, implying Vara always hit him to the brink of death. She was equally angry, sharply flicked her hand and turned away. The two sulked and left, each going in a different direction. The scene shifted to a group silently walking in the wind. Level 4. Vara sat at the table, clearly in a bad mood, making Dak and San glance at each other, whispering with curiosity. Her cheeks suddenly flushed when the image of his face appeared in her mind. Then Vara bit her lip softly, recalling her impulsive actions earlier. Her eyes gradually lowered, her gaze quiet as if touching an unnamed sadness. In another corner, Vaughn crossed his arms, leaning against a rock, his face showing clear irritation. After a while, she just bowed her head, then quietly left. Looking truly lonely now, Gunn glanced at him and raised his hand, pointing directly, signaling that the person Vera liked was Vaughn. In a forest not far away, a roar echoed. A giant monster charged, fiercely attacking her group. Vara gritted her teeth, gathering all her strength to swing her sword. The blade flashed brightly, then plunged deep into the monster. Vara frowned, breathing heavily, trying to endure the sharp pain spreading throughout her body. Despite giving her all, the monster still stood tall, unharmed. At that moment, the monster raised its claw. A shadow suddenly rushed over, pushing her away. It fell heavily to the ground, head spinning. Vara's body was covered in the monster's saliva. She turned to look at Vaughn with a surprised expression. He laughed heartily and handed the knife back to Vara. She burst out laughing until tears flowed when the monster collapsed. Vera just waved and smiled at Vaughn. Before turning to leave, he raised his hand high, waving back, the smile still lingering on his lips, eyes still following her back, eyes wide, teeth clenched, the piece of cloth torn, facial muscles tensed, trying to endure the pain. His eyes rolled back, revealing the pupils, face distorted in extreme pain. The camera stopped at the leg, wrapped in bandages full of wounds. He stepped forward to comfort him, saying the leg would heal. Change the bandage and apply more NaHCO3 light on the burn when the mist crystals turn blue to differentiate. The acid guy who was bandaging nodded, "Yes, sir." Then he stood straight with hands on hips. His eyes scanned the surrounding space as if inspecting, looking at the still monster. He muttered in a low voice, "Such a waste." He appeared quickly and reported, "Sir," I asked, but the medics refused to come. They said taking care of reborn is not their job. "Unless the nobles request it," Game said. After hearing this, he frowned, crossed his arms, and knit his brows. 2 months, 4 floors, over 100 dead. Old men playing war games using these young men as pawns. Some things never change. Vaughn nodded. "Yes, sir. But on the contrary," he shook his head coldly. Seeing this, the guy was confused and spoke up. "Sir, Gil said the supervisor wants us to start harvesting. They don't want to waste more time on the injured. No more wasting time on the wounded." After hearing this, he was silent, massaging and thinking deeply. His gaze stopped on the injured group. Each person was bandaged carefully. "Right, it's time to harvest our 10 treasures." The Boga clan kept digging tunnels tirelessly. Most of the gray bogas were small and unsuitable for life in the caves. I once wondered why goblins made them miners. He recalled when he was young, the first time he entered the cave, he finally discovered that it was because of the beautiful mist crystals that the bogas used for lighting. The old white-haired man slowly lifted the green stone and gently placed it into the box as if afraid to break it in the dim light. A boga quietly jumped up, hugged the pile of green stones to his chest, and the world. The tree on the ground is used to supply energy for magic. It has a corrosive effect on non-magical creatures but does not affect the gray bogues. The enthusiastic bogue group plays and passes the green stone to each other. Laughter echoes throughout the cave. With their innate magical ability, they can handle the toxic crystals without fear. So here we are, in the mines where Jira sent us. That gay guy is focused, rhythmically hammering the green stone. Sparks fly, but they still need to be purified and made safe to use a long and costly process. The sound of clashing blades rings out. They cut